CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. I'm Cooper Lawrence. Over 63,000 people gathered at State Farm Stadium to honor the life and mourn the death of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Kirk was killed at a speaking engagement in Utah on September 10th. His widow, Erica, was visibly emotional as she delivered her eulogy. Towards the end of her speech, she acknowledged the man accused of the killing. Forgive him. President Trump was one of several political leaders who spoke at the service. The president blamed, quote, the radical left for Kirk's assassination and talked about one way that he and Kirk differed in their messaging.
He did not believe that the product he wanted the best of them. That's where I disagree with Charlie. I hate my opponent. But I don't want the best of them. I'm sorry.
8 months into his second term, the president called for ramped-up investigations into his political foes. CBS's White House correspondent, Willie James Inman, has more.
This weekend, President Trump is publicly citing pressure from the Department of Justice and Attorney General Pam Bondi. In a post on Truth Social, the president said, what about Comey, Adam 55th, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Having justice must be served.
It's not that you try to silence and intimidate people. No, I refuse to be silenced or intimidated.
A new COVID-19 variant is spreading across the country. People are confused as to who can and can't get a vaccine. CBS News' Christian Benavides has that story.
Many states are now disregarding CDC recommendations. 7 led by Democrats in the Northeast formed a coalition this past week. 4 states make up a new West Coast park alliance. Both government groups encouraging widespread vaccinations.
The governments of the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia joined dozens of other nations in symbolically recognizing the Palestinian state, despite strong opposition from the United States and Israel. CBS News correspondent Chuck Jones in Tel Aviv.
War has killed more than 65,000 people in Gaza, half of them women and children, according to health authorities in Gaza. And the United Nations Commission says Israel is committing genocide. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains undeterred in his support for this war, which Israel launched in response to the brutal terrorist massacre by Hamas on October 7, 2023.
This is CBS News.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Get renter's insurance to protect the things that make your place a home, including coverage for theft or damage. Visit Progressive.com. So my mother is thinking of switching from Verizon to Pure Talk, but she's worried the deal sounds too good to be true. Michael, she said, how can those Pure Talk people offer me the same basic service as Verizon for so much less money? I said, no. Don't ask Google how much Verizon spends on advertising and promotion. A few seconds later, my mother said, oh my goodness, $12 billion a year? That must be a typo. I'll tell you, when I told my mom, that's not a typo. Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion, and their customers are paying for it. Well, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. Trust me, I would know. Consequently, they can offer you, your mother, unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Dial pound 250 and say the words Mike Rowe, and you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250 Mike Rowe. Pure Talk. Everything you need and nothing you don't.
Food prices are too high for many. CBS News LA reporter Amanda Sorrentino.
Families are being stretched thin on their grocery store budgets. Experts say there are ways you can save. At this Singapore grocery store, sticker shock is real.
$16.99 for 1 pound of pecans. Concerned. You would think like $10 or something like that, but it's crazy.
Other shoppers told us they are buying less and stretching meals just to keep food on the table. You know, it seems to go up and up, so I guess it's nice. It's crazy. Like, I mean, it's insane. I mean, everything is going. Sometimes we just got 3 things and $20, like, just more things. I try to go to different stores and pretty much all the same.
The FTC is going after Ticketmaster parent company Live Nation for bait-and-switch tactics. They're being accused of advertising lower prices than what's actually available. And we're live, CBS News.
the report cards your home needs to ace. I'm Greg McBride with the Bankrate.com Personal Finance Minute. School kids have report cards, you have a personal credit score to maintain, and your home also has a variety of reports and grades that it needs to do well on. As a homeowner, there are several key ones you need to understand, starting with a clue report. It's a record of every insurance claim filed on your home in the last 7 years, and it could make selling your house a little more challenging if there have been persistent problems. The next is the walk score, which indicates how walkable your neighborhood is. That's important because surveys show that a majority of younger homebuyers prefer communities where they can get out and walk. And one more score to pay attention to is the flood insurance rating. The risk of flooding where you live can affect whether you can get insurance or even a mortgage. Flooding is not covered by standard home insurance, so if you live in a high-risk area, you will need a separate flood insurance policy. For more on this, visit Bankrate.com. I'm Greg McBride.
Here's some recent career advice from Conan O'Brien. I'm Jeff Calvin of Fortune magazine. With the Fortune Business Update, O'Brien became famous suddenly 30-some years ago when he was chosen to follow David Letterman as the host of his late-night show on NBC. He was asked about it recently on his Sirius XM podcast when someone in the audience asked him about that. O'Brien was a writer on The Simpsons. Was he really ready to be a performer following Letterman? O'Brien confessed he wasn't ready. He said, when your moment comes, you may not be ready, but you have to take it and then figure it out on the way. Of course, he has had a long and very successful career as a performer, and in 2022, he sold his digital media company, Team Coco, to SiriusXM for $150 million. But he says he still wakes up some mornings, and he still can't believe it. I'm Jeff Calvin.
Don't forget to catch the break song every weekday afternoon from 2 to 6 on 105. Some programs to get into what is happening on Island. We're breaking the game with Island leaders, business owners, and youth. I want to thank several for our sponsors, Microsoft, Local Group, UCA, Fairway, Space, Schools, and Subway. Take the break from all of us too, and get the break song on 105. Keep up with the new volume. This is Soundbites, Ryan and Davidson. Vinyl records are just built. They never left. Today, there's more items spinning out than in years. And that means fresh releases, new drops from your favorite bands, and plenty of titles you don't want to miss. And now there's an app that makes it easy. It's called Vinyl Releases. This app gives you the finest stuff from releases, LPs, and EPs. With the instant updates every time you own this hit and fresh tracks lined on turntables. You pick your values, you pick your genres. You can even specify limited concerts. Now releases then deliver the music you want exactly the way you want it. Grow your collection. Feel the vibe of the live tours. And spoil those limited editions before they're gone. Only at VinylReleases.com. With Soundbites. I'm Alan Davidson for CBS News. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning. on the waves, 105 FM. It's a Tuesday, September 23rd, 6:08 in the morning. You can find us online on the World Wide Web at thewave105.com. Like, subscribe, and do follow our YouTube channel. That's Wave 105.1 And the show this morning is being brought to you by Children's Grill and Bar, the medical city, where patients are partners. Take Care Insurance Company, Our Island, your health plan. Subway, East Coast, Bay Pacific, where others place branches, we place roots. Wise Hour, the wise choice in animal care. GTO, we start with you. Pat City and Detailing, and Sherwin Williams King. We have your local headlines for you right now with Skyler Bistro from the Marianas Business Journal and the Blonde Business Magazine, and Paul Staho of the National Weather Service in Season. It's all being brought to you by McDonald's. Bring on the fall flavors at McDonald's Walk. Treat yourself to the pumpkin and cream pie, pumpkin spice latte, or pumpkin iced coffee. Hurry in for a limited time. It's only with our friends at McDonald's. I love them.
Here's the latest from the Marianas Business Journal. The Department of Public Health and Social Services announced yesterday morning that there is a laboratory confirmed case of dengue fever, marking the first confirmed case last year. Through epidemiological investigation, public health found that the case is likely imported to the island. The virus spreads through the bite of an infected mosquito, also endemic to the island. Public health says the island has a mosquito vector that can cause hours. A person infected with the dengue virus will have a fever for 27 days, and during that time, the person can infect mosquito with the virus. So you have an infected person with fever, they should remain indoors and avoid things that can have mosquitoes. Public health advises you to your healthcare provider if you have a fever, pain, rash, and mouth bleeding, usually around the nose or toes, as fever symptoms and dengue fever. Additionally, the visit to the emergency room if you experience symptoms associated with dengue and related fever, which includes severe abdominal pain, persistent vomiting and bleeding, and lethargy or restlessness. In warnings that while police department says that the individual arrested for sending threatening messages to perpetrators in Cascadia River Middle School was an 11-year-old male. Beginning folks back in the late Melissa told reporters yesterday that on Saturday, officers gave Finland to briefly investigated a complaint and charged against the defendant, and as a result, an 11-year-old was taken into custody. Analysts said that the case will refer to the Office of the Attorney General, and no further information has been released so far. Reporting from the Marianas Business Journal, today we will talk about Marianas Day, and Skyler Bistro. This is Tom Sprinkle from the National Weather Service on Tuesday, September 23rd. Showers are diminishing and will be isolated soon. Most of not too sunny with the exception of a minor ripple that could bring scattered showers Friday. East to southeast winds of 5 to 15 miles per hour will continue on this week. Seas of 5 to 7 feet could edge up 1 foot higher on Thursday and diminish again by Saturday. There will be a moderate risk of rip current along north, east, and west-facing reefs, thanks to trade wind snow and swell from the two distant typhoons. The latest weather information can always be found at www.weather.gov/GUM.
Have you tried all 19 Subway Series sandwiches? All packed with a crave from flavorful cheese sticks to chicken sandwich, delicious Italiano, macaroni clubs to the high-protein Italian heroes. The Subway Series delivers maximum crave factor. Get what you're craving for today at Subway. You gotta refresh to be fresh.
Hafa Adai, Landon Goldman here from the National Weather Service and with the Farm Power Authority. Natural preparedness muscles here, and preparedness starts at home. Does your preparedness come with water, food, platforms, fresh food, salad, and snacks for the kids? Great! Now lend a hand. Check it with a neighbor, especially if it might go, and make sure your kit is ready to. Preparedness is for the family and it starts at home. NWS and GPA preparing for together. For more tips, visit ghs.guam.gov and follow GPA on Facebook and Instagram.
One pill can kill. Fake pills often contain fentanyl. It only takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl equivalent to a few grams of sweat to be lethal. Fake pills are often sold on social media platforms, making them available to anyone with a smartphone.
Talk early and often to youth about the dangers of
expensive fences.
Stay informed, stay safe, one pill can kill. Are you planning a trip to the Philippines? Learn more about feeling healthy and more rejuvenated. At the Medical City, we offer world-class healthcare services, including comprehensive executive pop-up and talk-based treatments for as low as $530. Imagine the margin of white formy features, shopping at luxury shopping centers, and enjoying premium healthcare on one vacation. If you don't know where now, experience the best in airports. The Medical City, your close to partner in life. Don't forget to press the station. Whether you're listening or to the fifth Sunday 105, from programs to publishing, it is happening online. We're breaking it down with automated business owners and you. I want to send so much love to Dante, Michael, GTA, Silverway, Trains, and Subway. Take a break from all of that space and join us outside on Wayne 105. We're excited to announce that we're hiring for a variety of positions with some of the world's most recognized and respected brands, including Coca-Cola, Monmouth, Trains, Elizabeth Golden, Subway, Good to Go, and Cinnabon. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take the next step in your career, there's something here for you. Explore current opportunities and apply today at applynow.com. Your next great opportunity is just a click away. Engage in a conversation and look for the rest of this long with Johnny and Miss Kennedy. We want to hear true parents and comments. Even though we run too far in the family. I am to help you on the way down the family. Yes, it's me, Big Long Guy, and you can catch episodes of my podcast, Big Long Guy Show, not only on YouTube and Spotify, but every Friday at 11 a.m. on Wave 105.com. Right now, then really love it. It's a two-day Friday, and they have a lot of agencies at practices where we give you the latest information and comments so you can. One pill can kill. Foot pills often contain fentanyl. It only takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl equivalent to a few grams of foot to be legal. Foot pills are often sold on social media platforms, making them available to anyone with a smartphone.
Finding an option to get about the dangers of misusing prescription drugs and the lethal dangers of counterfeit drugs used for companies.
Stay informed, stay safe, one pill can kill. I want to the low, if you do not necessarily feel the influence of the I remember September. I want to start September. It's almost like it was 2 days ago. We need like a December, we need a November, like an anthem, like an Earth, Wind, and Fire anthem. And the holidays, other than Mariah Carey. I mean, you know, not Mariah Carey, I'm not even ready for that. We're not ready for Mariah. We need Earth, Wind, and Fire. I got it. Oh, yeah. Mariah, we love you, but you're fine. Come on now. We're not ready for that. I think, it was last year I actually saw this TikTok thing where somebody steps outside their house and the first couple notes of that song come up. And then he looks around. It's just the first couple of notes, right? And you can tell that it's the Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas. And then it's really funny because it's just like the music comes out of nowhere. It's like, and everybody's saying, brace yourself. I say brace yourself because we were just listening to the CBS News. That the prices of everything are ridiculous, right? So our friend Rendrati, I don't know if you remember Rendrati from Montreal, who is a publisher for the PDA, and she has since retired from that position and moved to Washington, D.C., where she's doing a lot of freelance, and she actually created her own media. She's got a blog, and she's got an actual podcast. She's doing really well. It's taking her skills, right? I'll direct you to her site, because she does a lot of interesting things, but she, and it hasn't Steve, sort of did a rundown of the price of groceries. And sort of comparing, or just saying, this is what we pay for stuff here. And, I think milk was like $13 a gallon, which is more expensive than fuel. Yeah. There you go. Exactly. So, people are in a place where they haven't been in a long time, or the struggle is real for people who have remained under the care of the government, who rely on them for SNAP and for basically anything to support their basic needs. And it becomes a lot much harder if you can't benefit from it really change to match the times, right, and the increase in all of these goods that your family is buying. So while you were stretching on whatever you were receiving from SNAP, these prices start to keep getting higher and higher, and it makes it that much different. I don't know, have you noticed the prices of anything in the supermarket? This is far more expensive. I think when you go to the grocery stores, have you noticed? Not really. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to remember, because I used to go for like Korean strawberries or something like that. The specialty items that come from Enzo, those are some quality products there. Yeah. So, I guess it really depends on what store you go to. Like, I've always been a supporter of Payless, because it's down the street from my house, and for reasons, loyalty, and it's just my place I used to go shopping. I'm finding myself having to branch out, and find items that I know are definitely running somewhere else. I go out of my way for me to go to another store in Gettysburg. To pick up, iodine salt or something. You know what I mean? It's going to be something that where there's some comparative shopping. But for the most part, they're not offering much, right? Not like $1. When you drive somewhere else for $1. Yeah, of course around here, it's all relative, because we all think everything's fun. I think
could start from my house to Barragata. You know, I don't feel like too much. Jesus, the fire. It's literally taking you 3 minutes to get from one. Anyway, very true. But people don't want to be put out. I think that what's happening to all of us right now is that we can't shop by convenience anymore. We can't shop because the market down the street is, have a higher price than, one across the village. People are going to have to shop wherever they feel that the prices are low. And the competition is going to be there because now, Payless does have competition in all of these other stores. I mean, there's Donkey. There's Happy Lot down here in Harmon, yeah. It's not bad. It's not bad. It really isn't. There's some goods, and they also have some products, some brand new products that are cheaper. They're more integrated a lot. And then they have a greater selection, for example, pasta. What do you want? A lot of times they'll carry that never brought it. So, again, and it also depends, this is not an ad for Patti. I think they're probably not going to like me after this, but I think what's happening it just depends on the neighborhood that you're in, right? There are some items that the community buys that they'll keep in stock because that's a go-to product. In Oka, I can't. I wouldn't know the difference unless I went to another Payless and looking for something that generally the Oka patrons would buy. Okay. That are in stock all the time. That you may not find in other stores in the other Payless markets. I'm assuming that kind of thing because I'm seeing different products and it depends on the buying habits of the community. So. Yeah, thank goodness for the commissary, Stephen. He's on the way. Oh, is he? Thank goodness for the commissary. That's, he's not wrong, He's on perch, Stephen. Yeah, it's just I'll argue with you about your business. That's just the way it is. That's right. I'm not definitely not going to, insult anybody who has an opportunity to go on base. I have gone shopping on base because I am actually shopping for someone who needs the assistance. And so the products that I'm getting for them are way cheaper. I mean, there are certain products that are way cheaper. Some of the dairy products are way cheaper. Some of the fresh produce I wouldn't touch. Some of that stuff is just way out of the market. So, it just really depends. But you're right. Overall, shopping on a military base is a benefit for those who are in the military service or have been or have some sort of opportunity. And, if it's going to get worse, buddy, be fair. Come on. It's going to get worse. Well, it's going to get worse when these tariffs start applying to places like ours. We're a duty-free port, but we still have to pay something. If they are jacking up the price for products in the mainland and it's coming through the West, they're jacking up the price. That product is going to cost you more, plus the shipping issues that we have. So, you may not see the direct tariffs on goods that we're buying here. It's indirect because they're being raised at the source. So you're going to see that. I mean, it's going to happen. I think when we're all pinching pennies on the mainland, you have to know that we're pinching pennies here. So, anyway, you're having coming on from a place like Saipan. I don't know what the cost of food items are because I didn't go grocery shopping, but I do know that in the restaurants, you'll find things that are not as expensive. I mean, things like entrees are cheaper in some of these restaurants than they are in store, in some in a fast food restaurant, right? So there's got to be something said about living in the islands and not being affected by some things, but being careful not to think that you're just getting free, that these things are still hard to get. And the shipping costs and the availability of these products coming as prices when they run out is always going to be a challenge for us. I don't know. What are you buying? I guess that's the other thing. What are you buying? Because Christmas is coming up, Patti. I got you a 24 pack of toys. Because that was $10 cheaper last week. So I got you a pack of steaks.
The Christmas. You know what I mean? That's where we're at. That's where the piece of chicken, right? I mean, that's your Christmas present. Brussels sprouts is gone up. No, Brussels sprouts is gone up. Brussels sprouts is gone up. Some people that are not mad about it. There's like kids all over the country. Oh, yeah. Brussels sprouts house right out of me. I don't see, but maybe you should let us know what you're buying. You know, I know that you do price comparisons because if you do shop on base, you know, when you have to run into the store, you're not going to the commissary. I mean, you're running into the store for bread or milk or something like that, cereal. You're going to run to the nearest market unless your life is so planned out that you anticipate every one of your food needs. And get it in advance so you don't have to go to the market. There are people who live like that, and that works too. Both for the men. What are you looking at on YouTube? Oh, are you doing that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, there you go. Oh, okay. That's good morning, everyone. Who's that? What's your name? Oh, Gemma. Gemma and Laura. Good morning. Yes, it is good to be back in person. So, yeah, thank you for that. And you've got the WhatsApp phone, right? Yeah, it's charging next door. I got it. Very good. So we have coming up here in a few minutes. We've got the big COVID controversy that's happening this year. I remember in 2020 when we were talking about COVID, we're still talking about COVID and whether or not you should get the vaccine. Under RFK Jr., they're trying to limit the incidence of you having to get it or getting boosted by making it harder for you to do so. And I want to know how that impacts Guam and our policies about COVID vaccines. We're going to be talking to the Chief Medical Officer for Public Health, Dr. Bob Williams. He's going to join us here in just a little while to talk a little bit about that. We are going to be, I think, hosting Congressman Moylan. Yes, ma'am. He'll be in the studio. Yes. Okay, we're done. 7:15. Oh, okay. You got that. I got it yesterday. Yeah. Yes, he will be in studio. Okay, so I'm excited for that. Let's talk some more about these things. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's that. We do have a couple of other things, a little more of a sensitive topic. Mary Howland, I was saying this yesterday, the Rainbows for All Children is coming up. They're celebrating a big landmark anniversary of the years that they've been here in the schools, talking to children and assisting them with the trials and tribulations of their lives. And lest you think that there are kids that have no care and are completely carefree, which they should be. They assume a lot of responsibility for things and mistakes that their parents make. The home may be a violent place to be. The home may not be suitable for a child's, overall mental health or even physical health in some cases. And we're also talking about the awareness of suicide. And I've solicited this before because it's a sensitive topic, and I've noticed that a lot of people in this community who don't want to speak of it. Taking one's life is sometimes punished by people, by family members or surviving family members who feel the great burden of the societal pressures that are placed on them, the judgment that is placed on them, and how they're supposed to be accountable for the mental health of these loved ones. And, in this particular case, a real out-of-left field situation about their loved one's suicide. And Dick Hayes has spoken about this before, but it's been a very long time. And I've invited her onto the radio this morning to sort of recapture the situation involving her sister. And she'll be on the radio with us to talk about that very sensitive topic. And I find her to be very courageous. And it's just telling of Dee's personality that she really is in the hopes that someone will hear that story. And then, of course, whatever's on your mind, as they say, can be on my mind too. We are Mornings with Patti. Go Pike, he'll be right back. Can you find 1973 sandwiches? All crafted to carry from flavorful cheeses, chicken chops, delicious Italianos, raspberry clubs, and high-protein Holy Heroes. The family series that was maximum taste factor. Get what you're craving for today at Subway. You got a refresh
new and free today. Free for you deals to you. Starting at $4.99 and the private monthly. You can get a disaster medicine for Hafa Adai, Landon Island here from the National Weather Service and with the Guam Power Authority. National Preparedness Month is here. Preparedness starts at home. Basic preparedness can have water, food, suffering, first aid, down, as it starts to the kids. Great. Now when they're home, check in with a neighbor, especially when not good, and make sure your kid is ready too. Preparedness is for the family and it starts at home. NWS and PTA spread it on together. For more tips, visit GHS.guam.gov to follow PTA on Facebook and on Instagram. Good morning and welcome back. This is the Wayne 105 FM, and you are tuned in to Mornings with Patti. With your local headlines for you right now, it's Skylar Obispo from the Mariana's Business Journal and the Guam Business Magazine, brought to you by McDonald's and London.
Here's the latest from the Business Journal. The 30th Guam Legislature will be taking next on Monday, and the agenda is the fix of the Guam fiscal year for the 2026 budget. Criminals that were vetoed the bill this month, stating that the reduction in the criminal tax is a tax giveaway for the family king, and more needs to be allocated to the hospital. $9.20 million education bill was passed, getting GDP funding to pay for expenses in emergency years. Lawmakers will need 20 votes to pass the bill and prevent the government shutdown on October 1st. The Republican majority will need at least one Democratic vote to override or rework the bill again. In more news, the Guam Visitor Bureau wrapped up its 2024 career roadshow on September 12th, stating that it helps strengthen tourism and change the partnership with the green travel industry. The roadshow began on September 9th and saw members moving from various native cities, including Vietnam, Bangkok, and Seoul. GMP said that they've had more than 400 travel connected representatives from across Korea and many from Guam-based hotels and tour operators. During the roadshow, she shared with the visitor trends and updates from unveiling its EFOR 2026 marketing strategies designed to reinforce the sustainability of creating Guam air services. The Bureau also announced a new campaign, Guam Grand Scale, Guam Using Deals, and introduced a wide range of unique travel transactions facing Guam appeal. A dedicated travel market also helps to foster stronger business connections between local and Guam-based partners. Reporting from the United Business Journal for the 105 and 8, I'm Scott Whisper.
Alright, Hafa Adai, everyone. Let's put the things together with your first look at this morning's Real Deal Traffic Report. It is being brought to you by Guam Auto Spot, where you can schedule a test drive by calling 478 or check out our inventory, which is available on our website at guamautostop.com. And of course, our friends at mobile gas stations, where you can download the app today for exclusive fuel coupons. Visit guam.mobile.com for more details. Cruising around the streets of Guam, we're going to look at the southern end of the island this morning. Traffic is light along Route 4, stretching from Inalahan all the way through Eton. No delays there, and on the opposite side of the island, getting around Haga, cruising around 80 minutes here, or Hagaya, traffic is light and moving really smooth through that area. Route 8 is nice and clear, no delays there. Heading up and around Upper Tumon, we do have some noise north and southbound around Happy Landing Road this morning, as well as the J2 and Kmart intersection. Route 16 is looking nice. We don't have any delays there. North and southbound traffic for those of you coming up and around the Mike and tomorrow, it's going to be along the Route 1 this morning, especially at that Jolly Bee Greenway section. We do have some delay there. So again, folks, eyes on the road. School buses are making their rounds, so please watch your speed limit this morning, especially in the school zones, as we do have kids coming in and out of the bus stop. So watch your speed limit in the villages this morning as well. No texting and driving, eyes on the road, not off the phone. Remember, guys, seatbelts are sexy. This is a real deal covered word. Good morning to Patti on the way, 105 FM. Are you finding a fix for the babies? Well, what can that feel healthier and really reasonable? After Medical City, we offer long-term healthcare services, including comprehensive and personal products and healthcare assessments for as low as $530. And not only removing on the right steady basis, shopping at tax and shopping centers, and documents premium healthcare all in one location. But you're going now, experience a best of offerings. In Medical City, your trusted partner, we are. What's going on? What are you looking at? No, this ain't good. What is that? Oh, yes. Come on, Grace. Start with the menu. What's on the menu? Great Harvest Bakery. Great. I'm trying to get you some yellow bread. Okay. It wasn't sliced, and I had to run to the airport. You are so sorry. You want to get me too? This is actually, yeah. Yeah, and I have something for you from Great Harvest. Darn it. It's hard. But this one in particular came from that bakery, Hafa, that I was talking about yesterday. Hafa is, wait a minute, that's the cold plastic? Wow. No. This is, I don't know. Okay. We were worried about getting a flaky thing. I ate my way through. I just ate my way through. Came home and I did. I was like, we really serve Patti cold plastic? What are you talking? Cold? Those Korea are these serious right now. Oh, yeah. No. No, it was, oh, gosh. I know. But those guys were so nice. Anyway, this Hafa bakery that I'm talking about is actually born from that Kensington Hotel. Oh, got it. Okay. So, they opened up a bakery. Okay. No, I really like to go to Kensington. Just right there on the street. Right on. And so we found a beautiful little restaurant. There's an influence of, the Japanese and Korean, they're great at food and baking. So we went in there, and this is like this whole, it's the kind, and I know you've been to these places. I know they have them in the Philippines. But you get the tray. They give you the tongue, and then you just walk around and put everything on the tray. That's a very Asian thing. Okay. But then they give you on the tray, bring it to casserole. Very salad bar-y. Okay. It's very salad
salad bar is 4 baked goods. That's exactly what it is. I'm getting salad bar vibes. I like that. But it's the total opposite. Okay. Just so there's no false advertising. There wasn't a green wreath to be found in this bakery. That's not what that was for. And so this part of it, that was one of the offerings. So on the plane yesterday, I got into a conversation with a guy who was friends with these Cajun James people. They're opening one here. Hey. And I'm here to tell you, the other bakery, which is actually my favorite all the time, and that's the Great Harvest. The Great Harvest Bakery, and it's a bakery and a cafe. And a lot of these places, they have a lot of restaurants and bakeries and sort of things. And Great Harvest, we would have selling vegetables. It's our place. It's like that was our first stop to eat. It's a small little, it's attached to the stir fryers and cow. And I mean, the baked goods, there's like a lot of healthy products in there. They have a thing called Dakota bread, and it's got whole flour. It's got all of the things. That's what I had for dinner last night because I'm detoxing from something. Oatmeal bread. Okay. No, wheat flour. Wheat flour. No, but I'm detoxing from all the carbs. I've not eaten so many carbs in so long, but all the carbs and the sugars that we have. I was detoxing yesterday, so last night for dinner I had like there's a bakery on every darn corner. And they all smell great. Okay, Great Harvest. Before I left, I ran into the bakery and picked up this, which is this morning. Okay. It's a smoked chicken wrap. I don't even look at it. Tomatoes, smoked white breast chicken. Dude, that's my jam right there. Okay, eat this. We're going to eat this. Fire, real flour, and its finest. And tell me what it tastes like. It really looks good when I know that. It really looks good. I love you guys, man. You bring me a little former Mayor Melissa Tavares. You brought in some pumpkin like the sides yesterday, and it was hard, girl. Oh, yeah, it was hard. It was so great. For me and Reese with the stuff, we just telling everybody now, because there was only enough for us. I didn't realize that. You got to be in the right place at the right time. It was so good. So she brought in some fresh pumpkin, so I was really delicious. And thank you, because she really honestly enjoys being here. Yeah, she's lovely. Yeah, I had a great time yesterday. We learned a lot yesterday. Yeah. Very informative. Thank you, guys. Yeah, we appreciate it. We held it down, guys. You know, we got people. We hold it down. You do. You know you do. You do. Let me see. I'm waiting for Dr. Bob. Somebody sent, let's see, on WhatsApp. Okay. What is your opinion on this? What's your opinion on this? What's your opinion, Patti? What's your opinion on this? This is bad. Okay. All right, wait, what are you about the suit? The suit that's been followed by Leland Palmazzo and Shannon Carlton. I'm not surprised with this. We want to leave it. So, we're not surprised because this is happening in your neck of the woods. They had that town hall meeting last week, that village meeting, where UWA got up and said, it's junk in your water. It's been there for a while. And I'm down both on that. From Juco residents. You are a Juco resident, right? I'm not sure whether or not that had any kind of impact on you, just bothered by the fact that, this has been going on for several years. And now, because it's serious public health issue, on a 1 to 10, is this a 10 scary or like a, I don't know if this is it. Well, I think for people who have been drinking the water it's in. Yeah. How do you guys drink? Yeah. I mean, people have been consuming. And so I'm not surprised that we can come out and say that would take the lead on this because, as you well know, Jugo equates with country. That family has been there. That's where they've been living for years. So Leland Tomato is indeed a Filipino, and she
understanding, of course, you would only imagine that there is a vested interest in the fact that the families who have lived there for a long time. This suit is pressing EPA and the Guam Waterworks Authority to act immediately. They say that they're moving way too slow and they're breaking some promises that were made a while ago. The families that are exposed are living in a place where the well is one of Guam's highest producing, which means that many more people than maybe the 1,100 accounts could be drinking that contaminated water. So they just turn it on. Well, I mean, just off the water. You look that that would be the absolute right. But I think that what Newsom is doing, what these Shannon is doing, they're giving them 2 weeks to figure this out. And in 2 weeks, let me look at the sheet. I'm kind of reading it from while I'm going. They want not just the people who have accounts in Judo, but they want all potentially affected households to be notified that this is an issue. So it's not just if you're on the docket, if you're not listening to customer accounts. Then they want them to distribute bottled water or certified filters to these households immediately. Okay, so this is when they want them to do these monthly testing and provide those reports for the public. Let's see. They don't want them to wait until 2026 to commit to installing treatment systems, because that's the plan right there. And then they want families to be updated and for them to know the estimated number of people who have been exposed, and then release all the records, because they also filed a Sunshine Act request. And they want another town hall within a couple of weeks so they can hear from the plan. And if nothing happens as a result of this, they're going to file a suit. I'm assuming it's a class action suit that will be filed in the Guam Supreme Court, possibly in federal court, if they really want to get some action. So this chemical is linked to cancer, and they've acknowledged that there is a problem, but it's going to take years to fully fix it. They're warning. Speed it up, provide immediate protection, and against it. So is this a trend? If you're drinking water in Jugo, it's coming from that well. Jugo is the largest producing well. I think it's 15, That's it. Well, so I don't think that there's anybody that's taking this lightly. And I think the fact that Regan and Shannon come from a family that is prominent to that village, it makes all the sense that they would jump on this, because they have a personal interest in that and their families are happy. All right, it's not 9:00. We can expand on that later, but I do want to get to Dr. Bobby Hungro from the Department of Public Health. Hey, Bob, how are you doing, Doc?
I'm doing fine.
Oh, great. It's nice to hear from you. Thank you for taking the time with us. I wanted to ask you about COVID new rules that they have over at HHS on how we deal with it. What's your take on how this would affect Guam?
Let me say this. I already got my.
You know what, Bob? Bob, can you tell me if you can take us off speaker? I think we might have a Bluetooth issue here.
So I just want to tell you that I was working out a book article which out about 10 days ago. Went over to website and got just gotten it the day before. Because I kind of feel it's important for people, especially like you. We're old, we have medical issues, but I don't like the idea of taking the chance. I mean, I want to live as long as I could. God willing. So, right now, it's still basically in a flux. I don't know if there's anything that came in last night that you might know about, but up until yesterday afternoon, the feeling was that it was going to still continue to be busy problem is we as public health have to wait to see what HHS and ACIP is going to recommend because we don't have vaccines from the CDC. Yeah. And until we get the thing together, we're waiting for what they said. But that doesn't mean that there's no COVID vaccines available. Like I said, we got ours as soon as it found out that they were on island. The issue is it's a wishy-washy type of recommendation for those that are 18 to 65, those that are pregnant, and then those that are children. I mean, wishy-washy for the HEIP, but if you look at all the major fellowships like the American College of Obstetrics, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Family Practice, they're all making their recommendations contrary to what the CDC or ACIP are pushing is going to do.
So what the confusion is eligibility versus recommendation.
Yeah, and that's the thing is because insurance companies will obviously follow what ACIP and not cover it if it's not recommended.
What does ACIP stand for?
American College of Immunization Practice.
Okay.
And if you remember, Mr. Kennedy got rid of the original, saying that they were biased and that they couldn't make certain judgments because they were influenced by the big pharmacology companies. And so that's, instead he got put in people that were more in line with what he believes about vaccination. And there are a couple on the board that ever since COVID was started, they, and the vaccines were available, they were supporting the vaccines. So that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people that don't think the vaccines are life-saving. And just to put a little note to that, none of them have any science, or not none of them. Their science background, some of them do have science background, but then there's quite a few that don't, and are not involved in the studies of the vaccinations that were used. So, anyway, so the other thing that I noticed is that there are certain states, and they tend to be blue states.
The whole line from the West Coast.
Yes, around California. When Michigan say that if you're going to do business in this area, the insurance companies, then you need to follow what the recommendations are. I mean, the recommendations are signed either by the governor or the Department of Public Health Director. So we're actually looking into that. We talked to, we got some figures out to a guy that used to work here. His name is Ron Ballarga, and he's in charge of one of the folks in the innovation program in Hawaii. So we're going to see how they did it, whether that could be done here, and so forth. Because, the thing is that we feel, you have these experts, so it's recommended that you get these vaccines because it's important. It will be life-saving for you.
So what is Guam doing? Are we also going to present some sort of resistance and narrow down these broaden these federal regulations? Can we work independently like they do in the West Coast with the whole West Coast Alliance?
We're seeing what we can do.
Okay.
I can't say what we're going to do because I don't know the details, and I can't tell you if it's going to be like that because they may not be able to. So, we're looking and exploring our options and see what we can try to do to follow what the experts are recommending.
Okay. So if the vaccinations are not recommended for certain groups, right, the insurance companies may not be
required to actually cover them under some of the plans, right? Or they might change out the copay or charge the copay or other fees. So that's where the issue becomes difficult for people who, are eligible, but it all comes down to the cost. It's not whether or not okay.
Yeah.
So if you are compromised, if your health is compromised in a place like you and like me, we are dealing with getting a doctor to prescribe it, or are we free to, go into the clinic and pay the associated costs, whatever they are, administrative or otherwise?
Okay, so this is the situation. Initially, it was kind of like that's what they were going to require. And now they're saying that you may not need a prescription, just need to talk to a clinician, your doctor. But that's for the 18 to 64. The 65 is that you can just go in and get it. I mean, I don't have to pay anything for my COVID shot.
You can give it to yourself.
No.
Just taking. I'm just joking.
I don't take care of my. Everything that a person takes care of their own health. I see experts they tell me what I need to do, and I follow their advice.
That's what you should do. And that's what you should do. Follow your doctor's advice. Personally, okay, so I just want to see how this plays out, and you and I will keep in touch to see if there's any major changes. But right now we're in a transition, and so we're just going to play in this area until something else pops up. But don't be afraid to go get a COVID vaccine if you are compromised. That's just especially those who are using a 64 and older.
The 65 and older is whether you compromise or not.
Okay, got it. So
it's the 18 to 64-year-olds and the children and pregnant ladies that that's the way they're decide what they need to do. And look at some of the stuff that was coming out of the meetings. They said, we're all first-timers. We didn't know we could do this. We didn't know. It's like a mess.
Yeah. Well, you've done a difficult job because the shift toward personal choice versus public recommendation is very confusing, and you're going to get people who are hesitant, right? And they might be waiting for that stronger message, which is, you should get it, which is what we were doing in 2020. Just while I've got you, let's talk a little bit. I only have about a minute left, but can you talk to me about dengue fever? We have one.
Yeah, that was our credit case.
Oh, okay. Right. So
the mosquito that is on the ground can carry the dengue virus, but it's not as efficient as Aedes aegypti. The one that in Palau, in the Philippines. Ours is a distant cousin that doesn't carry it as well. So we never had dengue locally in ours. Were imported cases until 2019. So 2019 we had a couple cases of dengue, a few cases of dengue that were not imported but came from ground. So it's hard to transmit these certain viruses without the associated host. So it's, again, it's, we do practical things, and that mosquitoes usually travel at early morning, late night. They don't usually travel that far. They're attracted to water. So, just sensible things you should be doing anyway to limit your exposure. But as far as the dengue that came recently, I think it's an imported case.
what are we talking?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can guess, but I don't want to say anything because I don't know for sure.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. All right. So ponds and water get rid of it around the house. A lot of people have, plants and water that just is stagnant, right? Some people have, that kind of drinking wells for dogs. That kind of stuff. Just be mindful of it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. I would appreciate this.
I try to use stuff that are safe to use, not pesticides.
bet you will.
Thank you, Mom, and thank you, Steph.
Thank you. I pray for you as well. Prayers. That's what we do. That's not what people do. It's not pray for each other. It's like, I look at people, I don't want to. I'll pray for your people. No, we do that. No, it's like, I get you doing something, you know, my ankle, I pray for your ankle. No, that's not what we do. Because every small element, and we don't have patience. We don't really have patience. I drove these mind to everybody 65 and over on my way to work. And I'm like talking out old people, and I'm an old person. I was actually talking to my friend the other day. This is how much of a snub I am. I was talking to my friend the other day, and I go, you know that lady that I was sitting next to, that old lady? And then I stopped, and I realized I had been talking to a person who was younger than me by 5-6 years. And I called her old. She probably said, you know that fellow I was talking about where she was referring to me? But yeah. Anyway, she's 65 and older. Pull my outside window. Don't pull in front of me. What are you in front of me? Pull in front of me. He's 65 and older. Right leg. That's for you guys. Stay right. Go ahead. Quit pulling out in front of me. Jeez. Okay, it's 5 we can practice that was worth the overrun. But we do kind of get to our CBS News. We are mornings with KGUM and FM and Daily Dothan.
CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
I'm Cooper Lawrence. Over 63,000 people gathered at State Farm Stadium to honor the life and mourn the death of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Kirk was killed at a speaking engagement in Utah on September 10th. His widow, Erica, was visibly emotional as she delivered her eulogy. Towards the end of her speech, she acknowledged the magnitude of the killing. President Trump was one of several political leaders who spoke at the service. The president blamed, quote, the left for Kirk's assassination and talked about one way that he and Kirk differed in their messaging.
He did not hate the past. He wanted the best of them. That's where I disagree with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best of them. I'm sorry.
8 months into his second term, the president called for ramped-up investigations into his political foes. CBS's White House correspondent, Will James Freeman, has more.
This weekend, President Trump is heavily putting pressure on the Department of Justice and Attorney General Pam Bondi. In a post on Truth Social, the president said, what about Comey, Adam Schiff's Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Adding, justice must be served.
It's not going to try to silence and intimidate people, but I refuse to be silenced or intimidated.
A new COVID-19 variant is spreading across the country. People are confused as to who can and can't get a vaccine. CBS News' Christian Benavides has that story.
Many states are now disregarding CDC recommendations. 7, led by Democrats in the Northeast, formed a coalition this past week. 4 states make up a new West Coast Health Alliance. Both government groups encouraging widespread vaccinations.
The governments of the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia joined dozens of other nations in symbolically recognizing a Palestinian state, despite strong opposition from the United States and Israel. CBS News correspondent Seth Flores in Tel Aviv.
This war has killed more than 65,000 people in Gaza, half of them women and children, according to health authorities in Gaza. And the United Nations Commission says Israel is committing genocide. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains undeterred in his support for this war, which Israel launched in response to the brutal terrorist massacre by Hamas on October 7, 2023.
This is CBS News.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Get renter's insurance to protect the things that make your place a home, including coverage for theft or damage. Visit Progressive.com. So my mother is thinking of switching from Verizon to Pure Talk, but she's worried the deal sounds too good to be true. Michael, she said, how can those Pure Talk people offer me the same basic service as Verizon for so much less money? I said, Mom, let's Google how much Verizon spends on advertising and promotion. A few seconds later, my mother said, oh my goodness, $12 billion a year? That must be a typo. I'll tell you, when it's on my name, it's not a typo. Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion, and their customers are paying for it. Well, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. Trust me, I would know. Dr. Holiday can offer you and my mother unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Dial pound 250 and say the words micro, and you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250 micro. Pure Talk, everything you need and nothing you don't.
Food prices are too high for many. CBS News LA reporter Amanda Starantino.
We always are being such general grocery store budgets, but experts say there are ways we can save. At this Santa Clarita grocery store, the sticker shock is real.
$16.99 for one pound of pecans. It's insane. You would think like $10 or something like that, but it's crazy.
Other shoppers told us they are buying less and stretching meals just to keep food on the table. You know, it seems like a lot, I guess it's crazy. Like, I mean, it's insane. I mean, everything is gone. But sometimes you get three things and $20 for just more things. I try to go to some stores and pretty much other things.
The FTC is going after Ticketmaster parent company Live Nation for bait-and-switch tactics. They're being accused of advertising lower prices than what's actually available. Cooper Lawrence, CBS News.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mornings with Patti on the wave 105 FM. 10 minutes after 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, September 23rd, we are streaming live and online at the wave105.com. Like, subscribe, and follow our YouTube channel. That's Wave 105.1 FM. And the show this morning is proudly brought to you by Tilly's Chili Bar, the Medical City, where patients are partners. Wilson, Graham, Resort, and Spa. Take care and choose company. Our island, your health plan. Subway Express. Bay Pacific, where others place branches, we place roots. Wiseout, the wise choice in animal care. GTA, we start with you. Accenting and detailing, and Sherwin Rowan States. We have your local headlines for you right now with Tyler Obispo from the Marianas Business Journal and the Brown Business Magazine. And Paul Sango of the National Weather Service England, brought to you by McDonald's. Bringing on the fall flavors at McDonald's Bronx. Treat yourself today to the pumpkin and cream pie, pumpkin spice latte, or pumpkin ice coffee. Hurry in for a little time. It's with our friends at McDonald's.
Here's the latest clue in business world. The Department of Public Health and Social Services announced yesterday morning that there has been one laboratory confirmed a case of meningitis fever, marking the first confirmed case this year. Here, epidemiologic investigation of what health care case was likely imported to the island. The virus spread through the bite of an infected mosquito, while it's to the island. Public health says the island has a mosquito vector that can transmit the virus. A person infected with the virus will have a fever for 2 to 7 days, and during that time, the group became infected with the virus. Killing the common infected person who is ill, they should remain indoors and avoid being bitten by mosquitoes. Public health advisors include a healthcare provider if you have a fever, aches and pains, rash, and bleeding, particularly around the nose or nose, after your symptoms of dengue fever. And lastly, you should visit the emergency room if you experience symptoms associated with dengue hemorrhagic fever. You can cause severe abdominal pain, persistent vomiting and bleeding, and wheezing or breast lifting. The Warren State Police Department says that the individual was assisted from the threatening messages through social media from the Alabama Middle School was an 11-year-old male. Deputy spokesperson on the ballistics reported yesterday and on Saturday, officers moved forward to increasing investigative and complaint of terroristic misconduct, and as a result, an 11-year-old was taken into custody. Analysts have said that the case will be referred to the Office of the Attorney General and will further information on the release so far. Reporting from Marianas Business Journal, who is on the Father Van 108, I'm Tyler Obispo.
Adai. This was posted back in the National Weather Service on Tuesday, September 23rd. Shadows are diminishing and will be isolated soon. Since the master Sunday is expecting a minor ripple that could bring scattered showers Friday. East to southeast winds of 5 to 15 miles per hour will continue all this week. Seas at 5 to 7 feet will edge up 1 foot higher on Thursday and diminish again by Saturday. There will be a moderate risk of rip currents along north, east, and west-facing reefs, thanks to trade wind swell and swell from the two distant typhoons. The latest weather information can always be found at www.weather.gov/GUM.
Hafa Adai is known engaged in the conversation, and the least of the resident is wrong is drama and misguided. We want to hear concerns and trauma. Who knows who those people are in their life? Gentlemen, close to them, or weird little friends? Hafa Adai Guam. Lincoln Adler here from the National Weather Service and with the Guam Power Authority. National Preparedness Month is here, and the Puna starts at home. Basic preparedness kit have water, food, specials, first aid, and some snacks for the kids. Great. Now lend a hand, check in with a neighbor, especially urban food, and make sure their kit is ready for you. Preparedness for the family and the starts at home. Think of the awesome TPA, try it all together. For more tips, visit gh.guam.gov and follow TPA on Facebook and Instagram.
They do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the staff and management of Wave 105 FM, Music Media, or any of our partners. As we strive to provide quality, respectful, and engaging content, we welcome you to participate in the conversation. Keep the tunes on Wave 105 FM, the sound of Guam. Enjoy the show. About this family, especially with this great CCRU. Some of it is what do you do? What's the U? CCR. Oh, just the R. Okay. CCRU. Okay, keep going. U? What's that? What's the U? Oh, okay. CCR. Okay. I think CCR now is like U. Yeah. It's like Bob Dylan. That you can't, the words are not always they're not pronounced, prominently, but you also know what you're singing. Coming down the Bob Dylan had a lot of that too. You couldn't really make out the words, and it was just, there. The 60s must have been a good year. You ever really do that though? Sing a song, okay. The entire time you were singing it right. Oh, yeah. It turns out to be excited. Mushrooms are alive! You're like, what? Mushrooms in the sky! Like, no, it's all of the thing. Oh,
sitting in Fleetwood Mac song, and I swore that what I was singing was exactly, and then I saw the lyrics, I'm like, huh? Why was lyrics in your face? I was not listening to it. So yesterday was a reason why it was really difficult to get a hold of the governor, lieutenant governor, and CNMI delegate Kimberly King Hines. Because I knew that this was happening. I didn't realize that Ms. Hines was also going to be involved in a news conference that was taking place about the budget. They were dealing with hovering over the budget. And, we're all ending our fiscal year on September 30th. So, he appeared at a news conference yesterday that was planned for the media where they were going to talk about money. And so, Tomas Melotia writes in the Mariana Press that the three of them got up before the media and did not sugarcoat the message. The Commonwealth is in fiscal depression and the House is on fire. What began as a routine 902 consultation in D.C. quickly turned into an urgent discussion on how the federal government could help prevent the CNMI from going under. King Hines said that in their conversations in Washington, it was made clear, very clear, that the CNMI is, I guess for lack of a better word, our finances we are in a severe budget crisis. There is commitment from the federal government, the Interior, and the White House to assist with the first quarter ask, but that commitment comes with conditions, and they basically is that the CNMI government looks like the House is on fire by implementing some reforms. And the condition basically is that the CNMI government acts like the House is on fire by implementing some reforms. The Department of Interior prepared to extend assistance on a quarter-by-quarter basis by reprogramming funds already earmarked for the CNMI, but new infusions will only come after the local government demonstrates good faith by cutting costs and securing the controversial $29.1 million loan from the Marianas Public Land Trust. I know that there's a lot of pushback with regards to getting the MPLT loan, but the numbers that were crunched assumes that the CNMI government exhausts all remedies. Amongst the more sensitive discussions is the possibility of extending the U.S. Department of Defense lease on 2/3 of Helium. One of the topics of consideration is extending the lease. I don't know what's going on, what that's going to look like, but also that's also on the table. There are other options at the table that are being explored and being looked at. Anyway, she says you have a compliment something people up to you. And, they were talking about some pretty dicey numbers. Tracy Narita delivered sobering numbers, such as former finance secretary. Fiscal year 2026 revenue forecast originally $179 million, revised down to $156 because of tourism. MVA, the Marianas Visitors Bureau Authority, had once projected a rebound with those suspended flights and waning demand. I got nothing else. Up to total 129,000. That's 22% drop from earlier estimates. And even with that loan, Narita said government workers face reduced hours, 64 hours biweekly under the optimistic scenario, 55 without. And Alpatan did not mince words. He says, we don't have the money. We need to cut down where we know we can survive, or where we know we can to survive. Mark Rabico wrote this story for Marianas Press. Go take a look at it if you have interest in Kenny and Saipan. You certainly will expect that you're going to hear more damning and devastating news from those islands. I did get a reminder from Congressman Moreland's office that EPA, back in 2025 in June, an EPA memorandum talked about money that is made available for emerging contaminants in small or disadvantaged communities. It provides $946 million in fiscal year 25 funding, plus $19.3 million separately for tribal communities under the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. It's to help states, territories, and disadvantaged communities address PFAS and other emerging contaminants in drinking and water source water. Eligible projects include testing, treatment, and infrastructure improvements. Funding aligns with EPA's Powering the Great American Comeback.
Guam gets about $9.45 million for the allotment for fiscal year 2025, and it would help to tackle toxic chemicals in water supply. And this definitely has a lot to do with what's happening in Judo. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to just invite Congressman Wilson. We're doing this raw. This is right outside the door. No person isn't present in that. Your choice, sir. Good morning. How are you? So, I'll give you a minute to settle. Here, thank you. Are you? I'm sorry. It's fine. Nice to meet you as well. Sorry. In about 2.5 seconds, that feeling will go away. I'm going to thank you so much. I was just reading the story that came out in Ariana's press where they were talking about Kimberly King Hong flew into Saipan yesterday. Yes, it did. And they had all of the bad news about Saipan's reform and how they're going to get applicants, we're going under slow, so it's a slow ground, which is really, I spent the weekend there, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then yesterday, you can see it. It's in your face. We are on the air fire. We're thinking. I'm thinking about our answers and the past. Not looking at programs. We see someplace like the labor in Saipan, and in Guam, we continue to thrive, and we really do rely so much on defense money. In Saipan, they're thinking about that. There's issues with it, and the Defense Department's investment in the projects that are happening there. That's a saving grace for Kenya.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily translate into a saving grace for the CMI.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, and Representative Kim Hines has been pushing really hard about making some voice here, but really the private enterprises, it was there just a few weeks ago. Let's just board it up. It's a sad state, and this is something we have to also work with on Guam to be aware of. We are relying upon tourism people, and then looking at other industries to come on in with the tariffs that the president is doing and making it more attractive actually for us if we're outside the customs zone. So it doesn't affect us. And Saipan is also looking at other companies coming on in. I think they had something on electric cars or something.
Yeah, I was interviewing Bob Jones about this the other day. The interesting thing about Saipan is they do have the potential to attract these industries because they are allowed to use that made in USA label.
Right.
So if you're going to start up a manufacturing plant in Saipan, then it becomes cheaper to operate, obviously, and then we're getting the goods that are manufactured directly in Saipan. They did this with the garment industry.
Yes. And we were talking, last trip out here, we were talking with Gina, this over there, and also looking at what we can do for Guam as well. So they're getting some clarifications on what it really takes with the made in Guam USA label. Different products, different percentages, what has to be assembled on the island. Usually, one thing that is right on here is that there's a lot of property available for these bigger projects. We make a lot of property, but we're as big as one.
And we don't own it.
Right. So, but there's still a lot of opportunities. I know they're working hard on that, and we're pushing out as well to look at that too. We're also addressing the Jones Act. I was recently on a TV show regarding a TV show at Foxtel with Cato. So thinking this institute there with a case. We've been trying for an exemption from the Jones Act. And Ed is doing this.
That's part of his agenda. It has been for many years.
Right. That will really reduce our costs. So we're pushing this forward. We have better a region of the U.S. that we have military buildup to the cost, and then too much money with these without them in excessive from the Jones Act. And
as well as the airlines too. So we're moving that forward too. It seems we got some good information on how that will work with the Transportation Department or rather the Transportation Committee back at the House. So we can also have other airlines come into the island.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that you had some talking points. Is there something that you wanted to bring to the radio for people to hear this morning?
Well, something to you know. Yeah. Just before I left, Friday we had the final vote on the new resolution. The House passed that. So, then shortly thereafter, all the members they're gone for the weekend. We're due to come back the following week. And right when it got to the Senate, that didn't make it at all. So they just got it right back. So it's really a fighting match right now. But I'm pretty confident we get back. We're not looking at a government shutdown. And what a tremendous, it looks really big right now for against our aggressors that we can't pass the budget. And there's uncertainty and that's not good for the overall economy. So I think we can get past that. We're looking at we have the resolution to go on to the 21st of November, and that's where we're going to complete all of our other appropriation measures to get the budget finalized. It's happened before, but I sure hope it doesn't happen this time with any government shutdown. I know that Speaker Hafa Adai and I'm sure the President as well wants to keep things going. But for the NDAA, that's still going to move forward. They're in a conference right now with the appropriation side to fund the NDAA. And there's several things, of course, in there that it's going to be really beneficial for the island to include for the roads, for the water, and for the missile defense as well. We also have some guidelines on that too, showing how much to be done. And with all this being said, the bill got to be done properly. And I wasn't here last week, so we look forward to that. As we were still in negotiations with the budget. But I was listening to it and getting a lot of good things from you, and also some clarification on some items that I need to put across. For example, with the nuclear power. We installed through amendments to ensure if there was any plan that we had to be notified in advance. Right. We need to oversee this.
There was 118 rules.
Right. That we put in.
That was put in. But what is the status? Because there's arguments over whether or not indeed it's in there, but there hasn't been any communication with the governor on that 180 rules.
Oh, right. And nor do I have any knowledge if that's going to happen. If that nuclear, non-nuclear plants will be here or not. But we want to make sure that if there's any plan, we have to be part of this conversation. And if the Congress and also the government as well has to be part of that conversation before it's even budget.
Is there not a part of the NDAA that talks about nuclear funding? I mean, as a nuclear plant here, was that not already language in the current NDAA?
No. There's no plan to have it here. We put in our office put in the language, that says if there's plans to have it, we have to be notified sooner. Right. So there's no plans to have it just yet. I mean, the thing is still being tested. So the words, I remember when UPA now is looking for the sources of the power as well. And they're not going to put that much out either. But there's a whole bunch of communications and planning that must go into this first. This is what we're seeing with the executive orders that came on recently, right? We had that one, for example, when the executive order came on with the postal situation, that was gone, right? It affected the executive tremendously. So we got on the phone, we sent out our messages, we talked to the White House as well, and had it fixed. But it didn't have been a problem to start with. that they would just pay attention more to the territory.
Is it up to us to have them, know what Guam is about, especially if they're building up and we're so important and valuable to the United States defense? Why would we have to fight against something like H-1B?
Right. That makes no sense, too. The president's advisors aren't doing their job. And here we have open communications. We have to fix these things, just like the H-1B. And that's so important to the islands with our doctors, professors,
specialty professionals,
the ones that work at UOD for our water. They've been doing since 1975, and we can't lose those guys, especially if there's something to trace into too. There's more bad things in the water that we can't take control of. So we got I have a couple of letters going out today to Homeland Security Paul, Secretary, and also Lori, Director of Labor. Secretary of Labor too. He's my classmate. I know her.
Who's that?
Lori. Yes.
Oh, okay.
By classmate, I don't mean one.
Oh, you mean classmate in Congress?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, your freshman year.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Good for you. You got it at me?
Way too far back in to remember what date that was.
Okay. So you weren't that colleague of yours.
Yes.
So it feels like you have a day.
Yes. I gave her a work afternoon. Then we got instead of following up and perform a letter to Homeland Security. Also, on this. And plus, when we get on that, we're already making phone calls for our other territories. We can't be left down. And having a meeting with the president, just to voice our concerns and tell his members, his cabinet, look, these are the territories. I know it's not on everybody's map, but this is so important, especially in the Philippine community right now. And they're doing this to us. I know it overall, it helps the nation, what the president wants to do and stuff, but really it's just the one place for itself.
That sounds like the rally cry from this administration as well. And I know that you're on the same page on a lot of these things. And go on in the pursuit of what we stand to gain economically from the military buildup. We also can't overlook the fact, for example, the housing situation. That was a tough headline to read, although, because it becomes bittersweet. Right. Anybody who's got land for sale is going to want to, it's a sure thing to sell it to the military. But what's frightening is the rest of us are priced out of the market. And I think that is the huge concern here is the availability of affordable housing.
Absolutely. And that was one of the talks that Keith and I were having as well. That's the problem with Guam is ridiculous.
It's been like that in a while. That's paradise for living. People are coming from, almost moving there. So it's a wonderful place. But yeah. Go ahead.
So what we put into also the NDA, we directed the Department of Defense, Department of War, on a housing reform study. The impact of what the report would have to provide, what's the impact of the military buildup on new homes, rentals, and purchases of homes for the local folks. And how, in the report also how it displaces our local residents too. And this will be overseen by the Department on that report. And then from there, we never really had a good point of view or from the folks that have been doing this for a while ago, to really see what's the impact and how we can make it work with our community. So we have a responsible build-out. We have to serve, the community has to serve, and the military has to be prepared in the defense from our aggressors. But our civilians are suffering because we're just too focused on the build-up. That's not a responsible build-up. We have to work it together with our airframes, with our shipping requirements to this. This is the time to really make the change. For allowing foreign carriers to come in, for allowing foreign ships to come in, to really make it work. And that's how you keep the economy good. That's how you keep the sea lanes open. And our allies are allies. And if it doesn't work out that way, might as well the CTP would see that as
an opportunity to come on in. That's their problem.
Well, it sounds like when they had the conversation over at the Ground Defense Forum, I think that the panel said exactly that. That, we're looking, staring down a timeline around 2027, where China's going to bust a move. They're already, locked in arms with North Korea and with Russia. And they're not practicing or exercising in these waters. What they're doing is actually building on these scenarios of how they're going to defend itself, they're going to defend that lane against the United States. So I think to his point, we're just not there yet. Guam is just not there yet. We're not creating these weapons, and we don't have adequate defense. While these guys are not, again, they're in scenarios. They're not exercising. They're not testing their stuff. They're testing the scenario, which to them is a hardly plan on how they're going to react. So it feels like it would be that the Department of Defense is going to have to look at Guam more desperately for including these assets that are going to keep peace in this region. And at the same time, in your capacity, where it feels like with this administration, what you feel like you have to do is allow them to make decisions against what we do here, whether they know it or not, but the ignorance is surreal. Right. And so you have to, it sounds like as a congressman, you're going to have to be screaming from the rafters all the time at the White House.
That's true. And that's why the governor wants to put it in a committee also. So we have direct, what we did for the militia buildup, we do the same thing for the missile defense part too. We've got direct communication and getting these 22 different agencies of the state there can come together and really look at this one more time. So we were in favor of that. Hoping to get a call to the Secretary of Defense as well to stand up the economic adjustment. Yeah. Yes. And we really got to get this talk started. This will really help their folks in their office who some know it, some don't. And it's just incredible. Just like in Congress too. When a man has blessed up with us, so did you have to change your passport to and every 2 years, there's changes, and so to continue to economic adjustment committee is necessary, but he wants the governor wants to do it later, things like that to make this happen. So I just want to make it all work there.
And then so many of the things that were in the original plan, and the first NDAA was included all of these things, the repository, and all of these other great things. Clearly, as time wore on, we're starting to find that there are implications or impacts on Guam that haven't been included, right? And I think right now, with the new housing, with the additional troops that are coming in, with the concentration on protecting ourselves from these powers, when the powers, for example, let's say everything is all in place, or as we are getting into place, if the water goes on or the power goes on, whose fault then would it be? Is it our fault because we didn't have the capacity? Is it the military's fault for adding more people without funding the capacity? I mean, who do you blame at that point? And how do you write that into the needs of Guam that's so basic that I'm pretty sure that the other members of Congress aren't even wondering where their water power is coming from?
Right. And we're working good at Department of Interior when we just had that last meeting. Again, our second meeting within the first 6 months here is that GPA, John Benmonte was out there too. He really put it pretty straight of what they need with these water backups as well. So finally we had some thoughts on that. So GPA is really voicing their concern. There's supported them too and following up with them as well. To get that power generation, to get everything to me, because it's so unique on the island, since they use everything, we share everything. We share the roads, the water, the power, the sewer, the hospital, everything as well. So all those things have to be put into the plan, which we're doing through these different amendments that come into the NDAA, what I mentioned on the water, for example. So
Well, there's a whole bunch of different studies. It does take some good studies to produce, and then from there, it shows what's necessary, and then with that, through the professional studies done, I have the argument to show, and this is what it's going to cost, and this is what it's going to do, and then we authorize and appropriate.
You know, they always say that, the military buildup has got to end sometime. And our long-term dependency on DOD is disconcerting only in that whatever they need, like ship repair and these other industries, it's going to be based on their priorities, right? So are we trying to figure out a way to become less dependent on the military and more and reliant on ourselves by finding ways to manufacture items and to, be a leader in this area on cybersecurity? I mean, there's a number of the industries that are out there. We're already doing 3D with Astro America.
Yes.
I mean, the Navy is, but it's just the front doors right there to just be open on industry. When are we going to start looking at these alternatives to, just to tourism dollars and more things?
Yeah, we're supposed to be the hub of the Pacific, the gateway to Asia, but yet we're restricted with the Grace Act and the aircraft as well. So we got to fix those so we can open up more industries to come on over to the island, and that's the push. But we also have the military backing us, the Department of Defense backing us too. So finally, Congress is looking at us like, we've got all these young soldiers, young sailors, young Marines. We have this great buildup. If they need to get back home for emergency, that's out of their own pocket, but it's going to cost them $3,000 probably. Right? Or if they want their family to come on over to visit, how can they afford to do that? So I was saying this is great, this their interest as well. But our interest is we've known this problem since ever since. Maybe that's the new next birth would be. Since ever since something.
Since ever since, Bill? Yeah. That would certainly do it. I have some notes on questions I wanted to ask you. You're more than welcome to tell me what it is that you would also. I just want to know, what is the mechanism? Because we know that you have required annual reporting out of Joint Region Marianas, but what's the mechanism to make sure that the local government, our local leaders, actually have a seat at the table?
Well, I think the administration has done a good job when they sit together with the monthly meetings, with the admins as well, and the different agencies get part of that. I wouldn't mind being part of it as well. I do have my monthly meetings. I think it's tomorrow with the admins too. So we communicate pretty well. And they know their priorities, and they put their priorities on the board. But then as it goes up the ladder, overall the national defense, some of those are put to the side. Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate. But then, of course, in Congress, you have the opportunity to have the hearings, committee hearings, and we've had dialogues there before, answering what they need, and my questions are directed specifically to the Congress in the critical area. We're taking lessons learned from each and applying those lessons to go on. And then from that, we're able to, that was low priority, then things move up and down. But it's just continuous communications and struggle and the leadership, right? So we've seen some changes from Biden administration to Trump administration, all the changes that are happening, the push to build America, it's there too, right? And the protection and the paycom, we're finally catching up and over. We're years behind in our shipbuilding. We're years behind in the protection of the paycom area, and that's why we're at this point. So it's the leadership, the people that we elect. The system is there, and it should work, but it doesn't always, unfortunately, because of the people that are in it. I mean, if we change it constantly, it makes it difficult for the next person to pick it so quickly. But I'm happy that at least I have communication open with our administration here and the military here as well to make these things done and make it. It's so simple, right? It's really not that bad, from our veterans trying to get assistance in the hospital or get
getting into base and what makes it that you can have your spouse come with you because they're disabled, but you don't have a certain degree of disability and stuff. And you get new admirals daily, you get a new general of the Air Force Base. So it's not one more time. You just have to have that communication continuously. But in Congress and in Senate, that's why the longevity is important. So you gain that trust, you gain that authority, and people know you, and you can work better together. They banking islands, they understand what's necessary. And it's incredible to have it. First realize how long it takes to get here. Which I just arrived last night, so maybe I'm still figuring that out too. But and then the cost of our supplies and how to get here is tremendous. So it's testing. Communications part of it, and the government is doing a good job of that, coming out of the DC as well. And her project as well. I do meet most of them when they do come, and they're fighting hard for the island. And like I said, we have, at least now, we have the ear of the president for this build-up, and we have all our allies and pre-associated states that are relying on the U.S. To protect. So with that happening, we got a strong country, and I think we're still going to, there's uncertainty, but we're still in a good place because we have so many other allies, and they have so few friends. Kind of strange with North Korea, I don't know how long that will last. North Korea's friends with Russia as well. So,
well, I mean, we also have lost a great number of friends in the United States. You know, some of these people, these countries that we've long relied on. I don't know what kind of bad blood now there is with South Korea after I swept in and took as many workers as they did. It was embarrassing for America to have gotten rid of this brain trust of workers who were here or in the United States to help us start an industry to make cars cheaper according to the Trump administration plans. This is what he opened the door with for tariffs. So we do tend to lose a lot of our allies. I don't know if you saw his reception in Britain with 3 others. And, you know, the reception that they did in France, the reception that they did in Canada, all of these long-time friends are going away, and it is primarily because of Trump's personality. And it gets in the way of progress in America, and we lose quite a bit of respect. How does that work for you politically? You're speaking as a Republican, and I've seen some of your counterparts, I've seen some of your colleagues, you know, fall on their own sword because they, you know, the faux pas of not bowing or being receptive to Trump. And I'm sorry, I know that's a long question, but I wanted to add, the case in point is when we were talking just a little while ago about the federal budget bill, you said we got to get ourselves together because we have aggressors in the Senate, aggressors in the House that are fighting against the budget. Fellow congressmen who oppose are considered aggressors. In the same breath, we call China and North Korea and Russia aggressors. Is it all one and the same? Anybody opposing? Is it all aggressors?
You're asking me if my colleagues who don't vote for.
Yeah, you said that we have to get it together because we have the budget and because the aggressors are opposing. And when I feel, when you say aggressors in the same sentence and we talk about China, North Korea, and Russia, those to me are aggressors. I'm wondering whether or not the term aggressor is anyone with opposition.
No, not really. You still got to be some diplomacy in there as well. They come up and they fight with their inside of what they feel they need. They want more reduced cuts. We're reducing cuts. So we're making more cuts for the budget so we can get out of this deficit problem, which has been going on for quite some time. And when the Republicans came on in, there were some big cuts. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, those.
Yeah.
We just have to say that one thing, but it was difficult and you saw it happening in real time.
Yes.
From the workers being sacked. You saw things that had great impact on them being sacked. How does that feel? You know, when it's a situation that is outside the realm of any congressperson, regardless of their party.
Right. So those departments that are being let go, the money is still there. They're just trying to get rid of the hierarchy stuff and just give the funding directly to their states and the territories. So but there's so much uncertainty for how it's going to funnel. How does this work at FEMA? They're opening things up FEMA as well. But this is why we have to have that like communication to make sure the route is done correctly. We just can't cut off the funnel and then can't pay our bills when something is so important, like really what they're doing there. So it's shocking, of course. Others wish we could be notified before that release comes out. So we find out the same time the public finds out, and then we have to take some action really, really quickly. It keeps you on your toes.
As things go and government, it's scary that at any time we could be, something could be impacting the law without us really knowing it. And it's a challenge with this president. And it's, I just got an alert right now that President Trump is recommending that pregnant women don't take time off. Based on what 12 hours of land, it's not the medicine. I think they think it's synonymous with the acetaminophen, and it's time off just a breath. And so, something home, I'm pretty sure it's not going to like that. But the point is that while you're juggling something huge like this on this side of the world, we're all wondering, if we're affected by the Jigo water bill, right? And at the same time, we're looking down at ground conservation process, losing a majority of their funding into the doing energy business. We're just trying to keep our necks above some of the rash decisions that are being made about the federal government without, again, the approval of Congress. Does that sit well with you?
Of course. It makes things harder than it needs to be. And that's why we're able to put in support repository with circle overseas. We provided the funding will come from DOD now to get that thing stood up once again. Before the idea was just build it and then government won't take care of it. Now it's build it, DOD and DOD take care of it too. Funding for our campus was critical to oversee the project. So, of course, it's not easy, but I still feel,
Is it easier or harder to be a congressman under this administration or the past administration?
It's pretty much, at least this time, I have direct, I got the president's number. I think no.
You have the president's cell phone number.
No, it goes to the operator. I send the operator.
You have an email, like you could call him right now and say, can I talk to Donald Trump?
Right, and who are you and why are you? And then
so they'll ask you who you are and why you want to talk to him.
Right.
You ever done it?
It's close, but
and what other issues would you go, I'm going to make you for this phone number.
Yeah, well, just the phone with the mail.
Okay.
Wait,
well, the H-1B is a big one, too. Would you call them on that?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we can, but right now, we're sending our letters, which we love.
We've got to go for that letter. Where would be a biggie? Yeah, what's the biggie? What's the big get for Guam that we still have to convince the federal agenda?
Yeah.
That's not a solid goal. What is a solid goal? Like nuclear power station? Healthcare, universal healthcare. Yeah. We have so many, and there's a pecking order, and I guess to my point is some of our priorities are dependent on the DOD priorities.
Yes.
We can't deal with housing. We can't deal with our utility system. We can't deal with the construction industry. All of these top things, we can't deal with our own healthcare and trying to build, a world-class, or at least a region-class hospital. And getting the federal government aside from ARPA funds to help
because we've got more military members that are going to want to go to these specialty clinics that we are hoping. So all of these education, all of these are biggies, and they're so dependent on the federal government.
Right. Yeah.
Our DOD funding.
Our economy is small.
Yeah, we can't say compared to the biggies, right?
Yeah. And we can produce that kind of new money for some kids, and thus we attract more people or more industries. So we reach but what we can actually do and take care of trying to maintain the government's amount of people working in the government is growing. But the people was also talking about I think our employment has gone up some, but there's still 50,000 people that are able to work that are not working because they don't want to. And that doesn't help our let them grow. But we can't, you get a paycheck, you go buy your goods, you pay your taxes, and that money circulates and you put it back into the general fund. And while we're still getting additional general funding, what we call a surplus, that's what we're calling it, more money than expected for the government now general fund because it has built up in tax and collected. So, there's no wrong.
There isn't, because we're all, like I said, we're entirely dependent. I think what I'm trying to say, I know that you know that I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I also wasn't a fan of some Democrats, Democrat leaders as well. And it's not even, I'm not a registered anything, right? So I vote all over the place. I'm sitting in this chair and I know who's good and who's bad for them. Because I talk to them and I understand them. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. So my ultimate disdain for the president is basically objections to my fundamental values. Fundamental. And I'm talking about, I'm talking about health care, how am I as a liver transplant going to be able to survive with no insurance? My company doesn't insure it. But things like that. Or in the case of just fundamental differences. In the Charlie Kirk memorial that they had yesterday,
yes.
She forgave her. She forgave the man who shot her husband.
Right.
He said to her, I'm sorry. To her, he said, I'm sorry. He said, I hate my opponents, and I don't wish well for them. When you hear that from the leader of importance like Trump, it just kind of lowers the morale of what we stand for in this country. And if America is on this kind of moral misfit, it brings down an entire institution. That part of it is more frightening to me than it is anything else that he does in his policies within the government structure. People will fight that out. That's what we had for, right? They voted for you because you're going to do that out for us. But the fundamental, the ethos is part of just rock people. It shapes people's foundation. And I think that when you do that, the people that you lead, you're not living in a constant state of fear. And then you also become like enslaved to the person who's holding the bag.
For the House side, Speaker Mike Johnson is doing an incredible job. The voice about more right, he's not these other folks like the president, but boy, he's so elegant and he takes a lot of pressure and he works as the best he can with the president and often on the Senate too. But one thing that he does a great thing, right? He's really a Christian man and he always talks about this. And when we start session, we start praying with a prayer and then also the pledge. And it's actually what we did at the Capitol yet? Okay.
I went on a tour with Robert Anderson. I would go to you.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that you would be as hospital girl as a long delegate as we had one known to do.
I was just chatting with Robert Anderson also because he drops right on. But anyway, on President's floor, if you can quick now going into President's floor, we have all of these faces on the walls, right? There's something all these leaders throughout generations, right? And then you only see the side, one side of the profile. But yet, the one in the center who looks directly down to the speaker is Moses. And he's looking, his whole face is looking at the speaker. And above the speaker, it says, we have the American flag, this huge American flag, but engraved in stone,
Republican Congress is in that direction. Of course, you always get some folks that sometimes think to check themselves more. So, but at least within the House, we're able to maintain all three of these members together. And then with this, kind of reminds me of the school. I think you always have this one class, and you wonder, when you go in the next grade and go, again? Yeah, they do it again. And I relate that to the job where, they're going to be reelected or not going to be reelected. So it's important, especially on ground, to get our voting up. With the president, boy, it was he knew how to get the people fired up and come out and vote and have them vote and all that. Something we haven't seen in a long time, but now we're, at least that's why we have a good political government in the United States, where we have the House to control, the Senate to control, the judiciary to control it. So it's just not a dictatorship, it's not CCP. But we still have a means to get our voices heard and somehow make everything not perfect, but in a way that it can function to the best, and with the grace of God, that's what we want to do.
Charlie Kirk bust fit anywhere in the eligibility of people that, being led by Moses and the teachings of God have a place in the capital.
I'm not surprised at what's going to happen next either. So
would that be something that you would vote for? Charlie Kirk's bust is liking the recent House of Congress?
What I did vote for, and what I did put in for, is that the territories have to be recognized with their taxes in statutory law. None of the territories have any statutes.
So before Charlie Kirk, we'd have to put your also, what has been your position as a non-voting delegate in Congress over the release of the Epstein files? How do you follow that on behalf of one?
Well, of course, we're going to predict the innocent folks in that. So, yeah. And the arguments are political, and we're going to go forward. And they say, we're going to release this, we're going to release that, let's forget that, and so forth. But really, I think it takes away from the important things that we should be dealing with at the time, because there are different committee hearings. The minority will bring that up, which has nothing to do with what our panel is there for, but they have the right to do that.
Is it important to you to know what Trump's role was? Has evidence shown that there was a closer relationship that he talks about? Is it important to you, because it is to the people? I know we're also concerned about infrastructure and the military buildup, but I'm also concerned, but I'm not necessarily surprised, is that he makes these kinds of ethical decisions that don't bode well for the sanctity of marriage, number one, and two, just for general overall loyalty.
He was voted in by the people that was elected before, and there were other lawsuits against him. Then, so I'm just dealing with who our president is, and just trying to focus on what we need for our island.
Well, it sounds like Congress is focusing a lot on it, and that's why I guess we're asking the question. If it wasn't a big focus of Americans, or even those amongst our allies, where it's the people who are calling for it, it's government that's calling for it. Somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be one of his biggest supporters of calling for it. If you're risking your political relationship with Donald Trump being heard, then there's got to be something said about the fact that it's important to people. So I know you're trying to work with them, and I understand towing the Republican arm, and that's just the way of politics. At the same time, that there are morality issues with the leader, and it makes almost everything else blind. You can't see anything past that part, and I guess that's what people are. They want to go past the Epstein files, so the reason they have to see it.
It has been released, but not everything, I guess they want.
No, yeah, so not everything. Until including all the parts where, his name would have been redacted.
So, but we got the victory system, the courts involved.
Do we really have the Supreme Court? Anyway, you and I could go around, and this is the conversation I like to have, because it has to produce thoughtful, opposite kind of aggressive. I'm never aggressive with you, and you're not with me as well. But the opposite kind of look like that. You too. I mean, we pick flowers and we give them to each other. We got into some churches and all that. I mean, there's a lot to be said about our own relationship, but I think that overall, it is more about these people who there's a huge outside. We can't be deaf into it just because we're not from here. Just because that it feels like this is not a touch, and a lot of this stuff doesn't it doesn't affect people's, value system. Right. Isn't that the basic of anything is the value system, It is what it is? Is that what? Pretty much. Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to finish this into further. I'll put it through. So thank you for the time. Thanks for letting us be one of your first stops after under jet lag. Oh my gosh. It's real how that is. Where do we go down? I think Sunday again because since the CR's been in class. So what are you here for now then? We have 1 week off, so whenever. Oh, okay. And whenever I get that chance, I come back home. Yeah. I mean, I know it's working. I mean, the jet lag is kind of. I went to Cyprus, and I came home yesterday, and I felt like I was gone to Spain. I mean, it's I don't know if it's the altitude on the airplane or what, but it's just kind of impactful. Yes, it is. I'm used to the numbers, right? One of the members, the card member, told me, he said, Jim, I didn't know I was jet lag until I retired. Yes. Oh, no kidding. That makes sense. Yeah. All of these years, you just kind of, you're out there. You have to, you just got to keep on going. You can't let the jet lag get you down. No. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time. And I will see you soon. It's nice to meet you as well. And it's time to take our break a little bit late, but hey, it's happening. 8 o'clock, UGUM in Go Gamers.
Last thing to be told is offered today for the first some complete and clear training on VIP features. Keep your tools, parts, and come up for stocking, surrounding, flashbang, or basic auto teaching. For more information, call 647-STAB.
Are you planning a trip to the Philippines? Why not come back feeling healthier and more rejuvenated? In Medical City, we offer world-class healthcare services, including comprehensive executive checkups and top-tier aesthetic treatments for as low as $580. Imagine a round of white stone booths, shopping at top-tier shopping centers, and indulging in premium healthcare and education. With local Raymond, experience the best of both worlds. From Medical City, your trusted partner in health. To find students, don't forget to press the post side every weekday afternoon from 2 to 6 on the way 105. From programs to businesses, it's opening on Island. We're breaking it down with opportunities, business owners, and you. I want to thank so much for our sponsors, local groups, weekdays, teams, cities, and Subway. Take a break from all of our food and play the brainstorm on Way 105. You're going to it's all the same thing. We're talking about what matters most to me today and in the future. And I want to be part of it. Have something to say. We're listening. Different opinions, bring them on. Let's talk, let's debate, let's connect. Everybody. Call our WhatsApp us at 671-922-1051. And that's my statement. At 922-1052. This is Talk Radio for everyone. This is right now. Here's the topic while I'm leaving 12 minutes after 8 o'clock this morning, and this is Mornings with Patti, being brought to you by Tilly, driven by the Medical City, working with our partners. Hilton Club Resort and Spa, Take Care Insurance Company, Howard Island, your health plan. Subway, Eat Fresh, very specific. Where others place prices, we place those. Wise Hours, the wise choice in animal care. We feel we start with you. Plasticity and detailing, and Sherwin will you choose. We are streaming live and online at thewave105.com. Like, subscribe, and follow our YouTube channel. That's Wave 105.1. So when these video lines are always open and available, you can give us a call this morning at 922-1051 or 1052.
We have the local headlines for you right now. This is Slider Baseball from the Marietta Business Journal and the Guam Business Magazine in Paul Franco of the National Weather Services region, brought to you by McDonald's. Putting it on the fall flavors at McDonald's Guam. Treat yourself today to the pumpkin and cream pie, pumpkin spice latte, or pumpkin iced coffee. Hurry in for a limited time on the Sunday with friends at McDonald's.
Here's the latest from the Business Journal. The Department of Public Health and Social Services announced yesterday morning that there's been one laboratory confirmed case of dengue fever, would be the first confirmed case this year. Through epidemiologic investigation, public health says that the case was likely imported to the island. The mayor spreads through the bite and infected mosquito, while it's not endemic to the island. Public health says the island has some mosquito vector that can transmit the virus. A person infected with the dengue virus will have a fever for 3 to 7 days, and during that time, the person can infect mosquitoes with the virus. During the time the infected person has a fever, they should remain indoors and avoid being bitten with mosquitoes. Public health advises mosquito positive reminder if you have a fever, aches and pains, rash, and mild bleeding, usually around the knees or gums as severe symptoms of dengue fever. Additionally, if you visit the nearest emergency room, if you experience symptoms associated with dengue parasitic fever, which includes severe abdominal pain, persistent vomiting and bleeding, and lethargy or voice weakness. The warnings the police department says that the individual arrested for sending threatening messaging through social media to an young girl in middle school was an 11-year-old male. Deputy spokesperson Melissa reported yesterday that on Saturday, officers from the Taylor Community Precinct investigated a complaint of terrorist against conduct, and as a result, an 11-year-old was taken into custody. Melissa said that the case was referred to the Office of the Attorney General and no further information has been released so far. Reporting to the Marietta Business Journal, we have 5/1998, I'm Scott Fiscal.
Hafa Adai. This is Paul Franco from the National Weather Service on Tuesday, September 23rd. Showers are diminishing and will be isolated soon. This could last through Sunday with the exception of minor ripples that could bring slightly showers Friday. East to southeast winds of 5 to 15 miles per hour will continue all this week. Seas of 5 to 7 feet could edge up 1 foot higher on Thursday, then diminish again by Saturday. There will be a moderate risk of footprints along north, east, and west-facing reefs, thanks to closing swell and swell in the 2 distant typhoons. The latest weather information can always be found at www.weather.gov/GUN.
We're excited to announce that we're hiring for variety positions including Guam's most recognized and respected brands, including Coca-Cola, Domino's, Chili's, Music of Farm, Subway, Pitbull, and Cinnabon. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take the next step in your career, there's something here for everyone. Explore growth opportunities and apply today at HafaAdai.com. The next growth opportunity is just quick. New and improved free for video
Hafa Adai. I'm an island here from the National Weather Service and with the Guam Power Authority. National Preparedness Month is here, but preparedness starts at home. Those that prepare to stay hot water, food, flashlights, first aid, fan, some snacks for the kids, and ready. Not on the hand, check in with a neighbor, touch that binocular, and make sure your kids started to. Preparedness for the family and it starts at home. Enter the essence of here, carry Guam together. For more tips, visit CHS.Guam.gov and follow GPA on Facebook and on Instagram.
Open doors, lock your windows, turn off the lights, and come with me into the Weird Darkness. I'm Dylan Marler, the host of Weird Darkness, every Thursday night from 6 to 8 here on Wave 105.1. Every week on Weird Darkness, you'll hear 2 hours of stories of the paranormal, supernatural, legends, murder, crime, conspiracy, mysterious, macabre, unsolved, and unexplained. Weird Darkness, this Thursday night at 6 on Wave
on a Tuesday, September 23rd, here on the Wave 105 FM. We're going to go ahead and hit the streets and once again with your real deal driver report. It is being brought to you by Guam Auto Farm, where you can schedule a test drive today by calling 478 Auto, or if you'd like to check out our inventory, visit our website at guamautospark.com. And mobile gas stations where you can download our app today for exclusive YouTube offers. Visit guam.mobile.com for more details. We are at the 8 o'clock rush hour, Guam, and that is exactly what is happening on the streets of Guam. If you're coming up and around Patti, you are going to have some wait time flowing into Anuga as well as Haggadah this morning. Now it's going to be Mono, Top 2, Mikey. We also have the north and southbound traffic. Stronger delays are going to be along Route 10 this morning. Whether you are coming from the new route or coming up and around Barragana, you are going to have some waiting time on that back end, as well as Route 1 up and around the Martinique Tomorrow. Streets of Guam are definitely busy. Let's watch our speed limit, eyes on the roads, no texting and driving. Remember, guys, seatbelts are texting. Do allow some braking distance between yourself and the vehicle in front of you. This is your real deal traffic report for mornings with Patti on the Wave 105 FM, and it's all brought to you by Guam Auto Farm and mobile gas stations.
Hafa Adai, Wave 105 FM, we want to talk. We want to talk about the things that are important in our life, in our community, and we want to talk with you. If you want to join the conversation, you want to chime in, we welcome it. We welcome all sorts of you. Our thoughts, our perspectives, and our website. 671-122-151. If that line is busy, call us at 921-1052. This is Talk for Everyone. And so listen to Wave 105 FM for Talk as well.
Don't forget to post the date every week over to you from 2 to 6 on Wave 105. And figure out the big issues that is happening on our way. We're breaking it down to the business owner and you. I want to thank so much for that for our sponsors, Microsoft, Local Group, UCA, Delaware, Series, and Subway. Take a break from all of the city and play the break sides on Wave 105. 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock every Friday evening, going round and Johnny Kaufman for the August Run. So, the 14th and the 5th dimension, where you find the purpose of your life. How can your purpose be fulfilled? What motivates you do? What are you searching for? What is learning in your day-to-day life? What is real? What do you for? How do you work? What do you love? Sponsored by Riverton, Blue Woodland, and the Blue Ball Community School.
One pill, 10 pills. Big pills often contain fentanyl. It only takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl equivalent to a few grains of salt to be lethal. Fake pills are often sold on social media platforms, making them available to anyone with a smartphone.
Currently, introduced about the dangers of misusing prescription drugs and the lethal dangers of counterfeit drugs and suspension.
Stay informed, stay safe, one pill, one pill.
Today, Guam, engage in a conversation with this group of people Guam is Johnny and Miss Patti. We want to hear concerns and comments. Tune in and the ranches on the account. Jenny and the Cool Piano on Wave 105. One of the sponsors actually has taken aspect of the contact law.
only been a band for the first 3 weeks ago, or not all the show hosts, Cassidy Howard. They do not necessarily reflect the vision that means to start and managing every 105 FM, News Media, or any of our partners. As we strive to provide quality, respectful, and engaging content, we welcome you to be a participant in this mission. Thank you for tuning in to Ray 105 FM, the Creative Ground. Into the show. Welcome back. For the weekend, you know, this time we gotta be extra, so you know, you can try to go extra outfit. I'm also wearing an extra outfit only because it was the thing that was the first class in the calendar. You only go here, but I'm waiting. I was extra outfit. That's what I'm walking in outfit. We're keeping our fingers crossed. I don't know what happens. Okay, that was fun. What did you just do, bro? You did not. I was trying to think I was trying to go. I'm using the very voice. I'm going with every kid here. What was? I was thinking if I had a little seaweed in my teeth. I don't know if you could hear it. We don't have to look at what it is. And here's my brain. Here's my brain going, don't eat this dice because then you're going to call attention to it. So just look into the TV cameras and check your energy. I'm not always right. I can understand what's screen up around here. I'm eating tofu, meat with tofu, and big chunks of seaweed. And that's not, you know, we're not going to Hulk Hogan breakfast right now. Tofu roast. I can eat her every day. Cerise makes maple soup the way her grandmother makes it. Her Japanese grandmother in Hawaii. And it's a white, it's a white, it's a white miso. So she makes it perfect soup. She cuts up some tofu and she puts the leaves of seaweed. Leaves of seaweed in it. It's the real deal. And it's not salty, and I can eat it every day. And I do eat it every day. And a couple of all the eat out of the bowl. Only thing missing is the balati. Just for the extra protein. I love the smoked chicken wrap on a wheat or something. Toasted. Okay. I don't think it has to be. I'm sorry, Mom. Seaweed. Ooh, that seaweed is so good. I'm so full. I know we're going to have to go to another break here, but I did want to work this in because I sort of pitched it earlier this morning that we were going to be talking to my friend Bruce. He joins us on the line this morning. Hello, Ricky. Good morning. How is it?
Yeah, it's funny.
How are you feeling now? Are you better?
Oh, gosh, 100%. I think when those things hit the news about the mosquito and all those symptoms, and I'm like, oh, my God, I might have been bitten by a mosquito. I'm just kidding.
No, I don't know. Yours was different. You had, was it the flu? Is that what that was?
Yeah, it was. It was the flu.
It's
not COVID.
Yeah.
You can tell. So, it was, and it's going around. Apparently, I don't have the one where they have the lingering cough. Some of my coworkers are still struggling with the coughing, but thank goodness I don't have the cough. I just have the major headache, body ache, lots of flu, the whole shebang.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you feel better, because, you know.
Me too.
Yeah. No one feels better than you about feeling better, that's for sure. I braced this conversation earlier this morning because Lily Howard from Rainbow South Southern is going to join us in the studio. I wanted to go first by this conversation that you and I had about a decade ago, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah.
But it was
I was in the studio.
Yeah. And the only reason why I wanted to have it here first is see if I could learn as much. I've always admired that you have the ability to speak courageously about something that was heartbreaking. And a lot of people can do it, and I totally understand.
completely understand the privacy of people in their feelings about this, especially when it's a loved one and you were very close to your sister. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to tell us the story and how you know how many years later, like I think you just had a recent anniversary, right?
August 23rd, yeah. August 23rd, 1990 was when she passed. She was 19, I was about to be 21. Or was already 21, about to be 22. Yeah. It's like you remember certain things in your life that you just, a song comes on and it brings you right back to that particular moment in time. There's certain songs that would come up and I could picture my sister on the night that she had taken her life. I want to say she waited for me to leave the house because we were all going to WA. You know, that's that right down in Canyon or Smitting. Yeah.
That was a club.
And it was in a club. Yeah. And a bunch of us were heading there to go hang out in some pool. And I just remember sitting at the edge of my parents' bed and I was putting my shoes on. And Friday night music videos was on TV. Remember how we used to watch videos during that? And that was when we would see like all the latest videos and stuff. And a song was playing, and I was asking her if she needed a ride, and she was like, "No, I'll meet you there. I'm going to get a ride." So a really good friend of mine, Marty Leoncarello, may he rest in peace, he also passed. He was there to pick me up, and so we left. And by the time we drove down to LA, we were in the parking lot, and we were waiting for them to get there. So we did not sit down. I was still in the vehicle. And I want to say at least 30 minutes, Patti, which probably had passed. And a cousin of mine found us and started banging on the window. And I thought it was the police, actually, because, you know, why would people be in their cars, right, hanging out in the parking lot, unless they're doing drugs or whatever. But I rolled down the window, and he was so distraught, crying and telling me to go home. And I said, what? And I thought the first impression that I thought was that it was my mom, because she had lupus and was, you know, sick. And on the way there, I was telling Marty to drive fast. I just remember him telling him to get me there. And when we pulled up to our house, I could see all the cars. For some reason, I couldn't get down in my driveway. It was already packed. And I get down and I see all these people there. And there's an ambulance backed up. And I see flashing inside because we had sliding glasses. And I see my mom on the chair, and I couldn't get into the house. The police wouldn't let me in. And so they told me to go see my brothers. And the first person I saw was my brother Mark. And he was the one that broke the news that our sister had taken her life. And it was a single gunshot wound in our living room. And so we obviously, my mom's Catholic, you know, really strong. My grandmother, both of my grandmothers were alive, and it was a very hard thing to deal with, especially, you know, in the Catholic. You understand this, right? But I always thought that is not a given rule, you know, so we did everything that we could. We had the priest come at the hospital, and Sally came and did the blessing, and, you know, I never went down that rabbit hole to ask or ascertain or even investigate the why, right? I feel that was between my sister and, you know, God, and I didn't, you know, everybody, even at the funeral, Patti, people, when, you know, you're standing there, and the first thing that came out was like, why would she do this, or why? And I'm like, why are you asking me? You know, I don't, I went through all these phases of being angry, and not at her. I've never been angry at her. I've just been angry at people on how, they converse with you. And you're right, it is a very, very tricky subject. Just this Saturday, for some reason, it's going to make me cry, but I was bush setting. Because I have a pretty big yard. You've seen Jared as a yard, right? Right. It's a two-person party to do that yard. You're right. And I do it by myself, but that afternoon, for some reason, she came into my head, and I was thinking, oh, well, if you were here, you'd be helping me bush set right now. It's just crazy. And I looked up into the sky, and the sun kind of the weather has been really crappy, but the sun came out, and I just thought she was there with me. And I do feel her around me a lot. And when I hear of friends that have taken her life, like Trinity, remember last year, she was from the Untouchables, a really good friend. And it's hard to understand the depression of where they're at in their life. I can't understand it. I probably never will understand where my sister was coming from or where she was at in her life, because they don't show it. Like, my sister I didn't think she was suppressed, but to a point where, she had to check out. And there's so many people that come up to me and tell me memories of her, which I absolutely adore and love, because I love hearing how my sister, impacted their life. And I see some of her best friends on the daily, and I talk to them, and we, on her 50th birthday, we actually went up to and had a little party at the gravesite. We brought food and had some music, and everybody hung out, and we just reminisced about all the great times, and I appreciate that. But
is this a different mindset? That's not really word, forgive me if I sound fast, but is it a different mindset when a loved one, when your sister died as a result of this, as opposed to your mother dying as a result of that? Or something else?
I feel this one really hit us to the core. When something so suddenly happens and you can't explain, or you couldn't, if I knew that would be the last time I spent my sister's birthday with her, if I only knew that would be the last summer I spent with her down jet skiing down at the port, if I only knew that these were the last moments that I had with her, I would have, probably changed my perception of how I viewed her and how our relationship was, and all of this and that, and, it never gets any easier when you hear of so many other people, especially when they're young, right, and they're in their teens, or they're in their 20s, or even if they're older, in their 60s, and they just decided to check out. It doesn't get any easier for me to reminisce about my sister and think, what could I have done? Or, was there something that I said? Or is it something that you wanted to say that she couldn't say? But my family was so open, Patti, both of us being gay, and I wasn't gay at the time, but she was, and it wasn't any, how can I say it? There was no indication that my family would have disowned her.
Yeah, treated her different.
Yeah, treated her different. You could ask both my brothers, and you're close to my brother Mark, but you can ask both of them, we never, it was never a factor of this is the way you're going to live. And my dad was Baptist, full blown, they built the church in front of our house. And my mom was so Catholic that my grandmother, Johnson, was, Archbishop Atherton. And we dabbled in religion throughout our entire life. So it wasn't that the faith was is pretty cool, you know, to be
To be different.
to be eccentric and yes, exactly. Now I feel, you know, there's a lot of different. The world right now is different, especially in the United States of America.
Exactly. In America, we're a lot more judgy than we used to be about things that we were indifferent about or were supportive to. So I'm wondering that do any of you and your brothers, do you guys sit back? I mean, not sit back. That's the wrong.
Yeah.
Do you blame yourself? I guess that's the most direct I can be.
Got you. No, my brothers. I think my oldest brother Mark, because he was there in the next room when it happened. We've never blamed each other on what might have changed the outcome. Because I feel more for my brother Mark because I was not there and he was. He was the one that found her. So, in that way of me looking at my brother Mark, I love him more than anything because of that. He was the one that found her, and he had throughout the years happened to have
to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wasn't there. That's why I always say I think she felt like I couldn't handle it, and so she allowed me to leave. My brother Cook was, I believe he was out with his friends at the time, if I'm not mistaken. But I think with all of that heavy load to carry, I think my brother Mark will probably be the best person to be the one to carry it. And, you know, and he has, you know, everybody has their demons. Everybody has their own way of coping, you know, of making themselves go through. But I think it brought us a lot closer than we were before. And, you know, we're not a hugging family. You know, I don't go up and hug my brother. No. I'm just saying, like, you know, we're like a bunch of dudes hanging out in the back, you know, and nobody drinks except me. But, you know, nobody smokes except me and my brother Good. But, you know, it's like one of those ones where you just know the weight that each of my family members had to carry. My mom was in such depression. It was her baby. Mommy Sucho was her baby. And the longest time, I don't think I saw her come out of. I think my parents kind of. I want to say they kind of blamed themselves to not, you know, see it. So did my aunties because everybody was really close. But I think when my daughter was born, I saw the light again in my mom, and she treated my daughter like, oh my goodness, Chanel got away with a whole bunch of stuff that you know, I still have welts in the back of my children from, you know, doing half the stuff that Chanel's gotten through. But
so how many years?
I'm happy.
How many years has this been?
35.
So 35 years, and then there being such a big movement on suicide awareness is going through the map, you know, for the awareness. When you look back on it, I know that you were a tender age back then. Obviously, you're much younger than you are as a mature, you know, woman at this point. But when you talk about, you know, ways to detect that somebody has maybe suicidal thoughts or behaviors that might exhibit that there's something really intimately, you know, privately being wrestled with by somebody who has these sorts of thoughts. Do any of those, when you look back at your relationship with your sister, do you feel like there were standout, obvious things, or was it just she internalized so much that she never let on that this was the solution to her issues?
I didn't see any of the signs, but nowadays it's like depression is such a huge thing now than it was before. Like the moment you find somebody depressed, you're going down a whole mental awareness issue that can trigger anything from PTSD to a breakup to anything And then from the depression, everyone thinks the next step is suicide, which I feel there's a disconnect there in some sort because people could be depressed but not have the suicidal tendency. You know what I mean? I don't want to label somebody because of depressed that they're going to have thoughts of suicide, but I'm glad that there's programs out there and there's educated people out there now to address these issues, to say, okay, these are the markers that maybe lead up. Or you don't want to get into your family's business too much, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're already writing the book, like, oh, so-and-so, you know, be gentle around so-and-so because she's very sensitive, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I wish that we had conversations like we have now back then, you know what I mean? Like, people are open to talk about it. Then back then, right, your generation and my generation probably are the same. Nobody likes to talk about suicide back in the day. Like, that was not a thing, especially when it came to how family members lost something. You know what I'm saying?
It makes a difference also that we live in a place like Guam where, you know, people are in each other's business all the time, and most of us are related to each other, and most of us, a lot of us feel like we have the freedom to speak openly about taboo subjects. And we're not all skilled in how we do it, you know? You know, we're fat. You know, I didn't have an older relative come up and go, girl, you're so fat. You don't know, girl, what I'm going through. You know what I mean? It's not even that they mean to be mean. They're just not skilled and tactful.
Yeah. So the bedside manner is out the window. It definitely is. And the conversation now from the older generation of our parents, right, versus our way. Our generation right now, I talk to Chanel about everything and anything, right? Because you always want to have that early detection. If something at work is bothering you, is one of your friends, you know, something's off, like you're not the same anymore. And we can find the root of the problem, and that was the whole thing, was to find the root of why you are like this now, you know. And then there's so many programs out there that you can get help from, you know. And then plus, you know, you too, Patti, people feel comfortable talking to you, right? And you have people calling up all the time to just lay out whatever is on their mind. And at times, you too can be a person that can be like, guys, the callers that called kind of sounded a little off, right? Like, didn't sound like your normal typical way of calling in. So you already see those types of markers and mechanisms, and you have the platform and you know, the conversation, because people they feel comfortable talking to you. And that's a really good thing to have. And then it can also be a really tiresome thing to have, right? When everybody is coming at you at once.
Well,
you yourself have to check.
Sure, that's you know, that's my third thing today. You know, for well, you got to sort of let down your hair and give them the notes to your friends, right? So,
but how do you? I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, how do you separate, right? Like, we've grown up in a spotlight. Our family has always been out there doing our bunch of crazy stuff, right? But how do you do it when one of your own just decides to, you know, leave and has taken the road? And it shakes our family core down to the bone, you know? It's like, whoa, what just happened here? Like,
it's really, I think it's difficult for families, and and I specifically meant, we know how we are. We know what our idiosyncrasies are in our culture, and how women are and are strong, and all of these things. We're bold, and we're all of the things, right? So women, I would think that as a woman, as a mother, for women who typically, you know, my cousin calls it, she says, I'm a Camacho, right? I've fallen and I hurt myself, and my cousin Veronica says, I didn't go to the doctor because I'm a Camacho. You just put dirt on it and then keep on going. That's just how we are. You know what I mean? It's like I'm getting from point A to point B. You know, there might be something in the middle. Okay, fine, but I still got to get to point B. So I think that and when you're a person like that, you become a mother like that. You know, stop it. Are we bleeding? Okay, keep going. You know what I mean? Did it break your heart? Okay, never mind then. You know, we tend to do that in our culture. We tend to do that in our culture. Just not good, happening, let's keep moving. And as dangerous as that can be, because we're not always rearing children who respond well to the guidance of their parents, right? So then it's up to the friends that they see for, their brothers and sisters that they love and adore, to be able to be the sounding board. But again, to your point, not everybody needs a sounding board. Everybody wants to even want anybody to know what to do.
Right.
You know.
That is the most scariest part about my sister's death, was that we did not at all see that coming at all. Like, I could rack my brains and go back into time and think about any little thing that might have even, like you were saying, was there any reason or any, like, something that she might have done or something that she might have said, or maybe your friend stepped up and said something about your sister, and nothing. Like, it was absolutely a shocker. And my sister's not a writer, right? So there was nothing left behind to go in her room and be like, oh, here's her diary, and let's read about what, she might have her thoughts down on words, because that's what we did back in the day, right? Everybody had a diary or some sort of,
some outlet.
Something. And nowadays, we have the courtesy of social media to see people in their, whatever it is they post, whatever it is they write, whatever, we could go back and on, because in the 90s and the 80s, you had to write pen to paper, and my sister was not that type of person. She had a bunch of photographs that she was taking out with her phones. Thank goodness that they had it all. We lost a lot of our photographs in punks on the wall, which I was saddened about. But she never once, Patti, made my parents worry about anything. So they, for them it was a double shock. For us it was a double shock. And for everybody that knew her, it was a shock. But it's those that compartmentalize and keep everything inside and don't share, what's happening, is the most hurtful and shocking, and, but I'm not mad at her. I'm not mad at anybody that was there. I'm not mad at her, I think I might have yelled out to, one of her friends that night, but that was only due to shock, and then I apologized, and, I was just like, what did you say to her? You were the last person that talked to her on the phone, like that kind of, because of within everything that transpired. But to anybody listening that has lost somebody, the best thing to do is just carry the memories that you have with them that are loving and caring, and don't go down that rabbit hole of trying to find out or find blame. You'll never get the answer, because the only person that can answer it is God.
That's some good advice. I really appreciate that. I admire you greatly. I always have. You don't need to eulogize each other, but I do appreciate that. I appreciate it because a lot of people don't speak, and I know you know exactly that feeling of not wanting to. It becomes a reflection of family, and that sort of misplaced judgment on people that, their family reared them wrong, or, they didn't do enough, or they didn't speak enough. It's a lot of it is not, it's still a puzzle, right? And a lot of pieces are missing when it comes to, human emotion and why people are compelled to do and react the way they do. I appreciate the conversation because you're living to talk about it, what I think is you know, and not to sound desensitized to it, but, you know, you found something positive in her death to be able to share with others. And like I said, we're not going to be able to save anything, you know, as to this issue during suicide awareness month every year. But it does remind us that we just really got to love the people that we love and do the best that we can do. And to your point, the rest is in God's hands. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I want to say it was the best 19 years she's given us. I'm very grateful for it. But it always starts out with a conversation, Patty. It's just basically asking how you're doing and what's going on in your life. Will definitely, you know, will last, you know, much more personal than you would think to another person that's struggling inside. Because I know sometimes when I feel like I'm holding stuff in, and a lot of times they sent me a psychiatrist after she passed because they thought I was going to follow her because we were so close. And I was like, what? And I chewed out the psychiatrist station to the house, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't know me. But again, people grieve in different ways. But a conversation definitely goes a very long way. And I'm not telling you to go hug your brothers and sisters that you don't normally hug because you know, that's a lot. That's me.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot more creepy in that one. But, yeah, but you're not, you know, there's actually a TikTok thing for that. But it just randomly, it was a girl, and it was like, it was randomly hugging your sibling, your brother. Because they was randomly going to their brothers and wrapping their arms around them. And I have one brother. My oldest brother, I could do that. We were all over each other all the time. I love him so much. My brother John is less of that kind of guy, but I know that if I walked up to him and hugged him, he would even embrace me back. But when he was 15, 16, 17, he probably would have drop kicked me. Right?
Yeah. I think I was fist bumping my brothers and everything, and you know, telling them shoot and going up, you know, to bro sign or whatever to my brothers. But hugging would be a whole different world. They would look at me and be like, where are you going? Or what's happening? Or how much money do you want? Or, you know, what news do you have to bear that I have to have a hug with it? Or something like that. No, I think we're good. But see, Patty, I appreciate you messaging me, and I have no problem talking about my sister and how she passed. And I hope whoever it is that's listening, for those that have lost their loved ones, I'm sorry for your loss. I always remember the good times.
Thank you for that. I will say, on a final note about your relationship with at least one of your brothers, this is what you'll never see. Is Dice and Mark in the same room with the same shirt on.
No! Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a legendary family story about Dice like popping off on her brother because he's wearing the same shirt.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That happened that I had to change the shirt. That was her dad's 86th birthday or something like that. Mark and I looked at the same way, and you know what my brother Chris did? He swapped shirts with me. He swapped shirts with me because he knew how much that bothered me. So I had my brother Cook's shirt on, and then Cook and Mark were matching.
Oh, that's so hilarious. I love it.
Oh, yeah. I love my brothers to death, and I would not have any problem doing 3 hots in a pot going to jail for them. But yeah, I would tell them that. Love runs really deep in our family, but I'm very glad, and thank you for allowing me to talk about my sister Lynn.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Let me go. Take care, okay?
I love you too. Okay.
That was a little bit of a long conversation, but I defer. And we'll get back on track as we always do. It is about 8 minutes before the top of the hour. Let's take that break here. We'll be right back.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance
and Cooper Lounge. Over 63,000 people gathered at State Farm Stadium to honor the life and mourn the death of Turning Point USA founder Carol Cook. Cook was killed at a speaking engagement in Utah on September 10th. His widow, Erica, was visibly emotional as she delivered her eulogy. Towards the end of her speech, she acknowledged the man accused of the killing. President Trump is one of several political leaders who spoke at the service. The president blamed, quote, the radical left for Kirk's assassination and talked about one way that he and Kirk differed in their messaging.
He didn't know that they gave the power to the best of them. That's why I think we would try I hate my opponent. But I do like the program. That's why
8 months into his second term, the president called for ramped-up investigations into his political foes. CBS's White House correspondent, Roy James Olin, has more.
This weekend, President Trump publicly putting pressure on the Department of Justice and Attorney General Ken Bundy. In a post on Truth Social, the president said, what about Comey, Adam Schiff's help, and Tessa? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Adding, justice must be served.
We set out to try to stop and intimidate people, but I refuse to be found or intimidated.
A new COVID-19 variant is spreading across the country. People are confused as to who can and can't get a vaccine. CBS News' Christian Benavides has that story.
Many states are now disregarding CDC recommendations. 7, led by Democrats in the Northeast, formed a coalition this past week. 4 states make up a new West Coast Health Alliance, both government groups encouraging widespread vaccinations.
The governments of the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia joined dozens of other nations in symbolically recognizing a Palestinian state, despite strong opposition from the United States and Israel. CBS News correspondent Seth Jones in Tel Aviv.
This war has killed more than 65,000 people in Gaza, half of them women and children, according to health authorities in Gaza. And the United Nations Commission says Israel is committing genocide. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains undeterred in his support for this war, which Israel launched in response to the brutal terrorist massacre by Hamas on October 7, 2023.
This is CBS News.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Get renter's insurance to protect the things that make your place a home, including coverage for theft or damage. Visit Progressive.com. So my mother is thinking of switching from Verizon to Pure Talk, but she's worried the deal is too good to be true. Like this, she said, how can those Pure Talk people offer me the same basic service as Verizon for so much less money? I said, Mom, go ask Google how much Verizon spends on advertising and promotion. A few seconds later, my mother said, oh my goodness, $12 billion a year? That must be a typo. I'll tell you, when I told my mom, it's not a typo. Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion, and their customers are paying for it. Well, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. Trust me, I would know. Cost has been offer you and my mother unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Dial #250 and say the words micro, and you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. That's #250 micro. Pure Talk. Everything you need and nothing you don't.
Food prices are too high for many. CBS News LA reporter Amanda Sorrentino.
Families have been stretched thin on their grocery store budget. Extra clean, there are ways you can save. At a vote-sanitary grocery store, the sticker shock is real.
$16.99 for one bag of pecans. It's insane. You would think like $20 or something like that, but it's crazy.
Other shoppers told us they are buying less and stretching meals just to keep food on the table. You know, it seems to go up and up, so I guess it's crazy. Like, I mean, it's insane. I mean, everything is going up. So sometimes you just can't take anything, but it always like just small things. I try to go to different stores and things are the same.
The FCC is going after Ticketmaster parent company Live Nation for bait-and-switch tactics. They're being accused of advertising lower prices than what's actually available. And we're live to CBS News.
Here's some recent career advice from Conan O'Brien. I'm Jeff Colvin of Fortune magazine. With the Fortune Business Update, O'Brien became famous suddenly 30-some years ago when he was chosen to follow David Letterman as the host of his late-night show on NBC. He was asked about it recently on his Sirius XM podcast when someone in the audience asked him about that. O'Brien was a writer on The Simpsons. Was he really ready to be a performer following Letterman? O'Brien confessed he wasn't ready. He said, when your moment comes, you may not be ready, but you have to take it and then figure it out on the way. Of course, he has had a long and very successful career as a performer, and in 2022, he sold his digital media company, Team Coco, to SiriusXM for $150 million. But he says he still wakes up some mornings, and he still can't believe it. I'm Jeff Golden.
It's a milestone for Soundbite. Our 9,000th show. When my wife transitioned all those Soundbites in 1991, I was new yet. Selfies were like great, and hanging out was nothing more than a dream. We started with a thought about the first real work laptop with a huge 20-megabyte drive. 34 years later, it's a brave new world. More amazing every day. So along with our fabulous Easy Cloud and our brilliant Rich Johnson, we're dedicating this 9,000 podcast to John's memory.